Greetings, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Recap Thursday. Yes, folks, we made it through another week of streams. We somehow survived one more week in this dystopian nightmare. Some might even call the apocalypse. So, with that being said, today is probably still going to be spicy and filled with a lot of horrible dystopian nightmare news from both at home and abroad. Of course, we will start off with our top U.S. and world headlines from Democracy Now! And we will go from there. But as I'm looking at our playlist, I mean, there's a lot of ice. There's a lot of Trump trying to instigate war. And remember how we found out that if you want to apply to being a deportation officer, it's pretty simple for one, and for two, there is a questionnaire section that is pretty egregious, pretty much a loyalty test. Well, we're going to get into that too today. So, with that being said, hello, Princess Kayla. First up in here, hello, Anna, and yeah, let's get to this thing.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. The U.S. has withdrawn military personnel from bases in the Middle East as President Trump has repeatedly warned the U.S. will intervene on behalf of the protesters in Iran. By Thursday...
So, hold up. If we're going to intervene in Iran, why are we withdrawing personnel? Did I hear that right? Am I...
Withdrawn military personnel from bases in the Middle East as President Trump has repeatedly warned the U.S. will intervene on behalf of the protesters in Iran. By Thursday morning, Iran shut down its commercial airspace for a number of hours. A senior Iranian official said Iran had warned its neighbors in the region that it would hit American bases in the event of U.S. airstrikes. This comes...
Oh, my God. Oh, yeah. World War III, folks. It's really a toss-up and a race between are we going to invade Iran first or Greenland first? And the worst part of all of that is whichever one we don't invade first, we are still going to invade second. Because Trump wants Greenland. He wants it. And whoever's in his ear wants it even more. So it's just... We're going to start off World War III with a multi-front facing war at home and abroad at the same time, which I don't understand why we would do that. But hey, apparently Germany could do it for a little while. Surely so could the United States. Princess Kayla flexing that she beat Anna to the stream. Hey, at least there's a little bit of levity going on in the world, right? And it happens to be in chat.
As Iran postponed the execution of Irfan Soltani, the 26-year-old protester sentenced to death just days after his arrest. More than 2,500 people, including 147 security officials, have been killed since protests began December 28th. That's according to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency. Iranian authorities have imposed an internet shutdown across Iran, but videos of the deadly crackdown on protesters have been trickling out of Iran via smuggled Starlink terminals. In one video...
See, here's the thing. We love Amy Goodman. We stan Amy Goodman. We are 100% Democracy Now! As far as a reputable news source, right? But the fact that these protests are relying on Elon Musk's Starlink to get information out is whitewashing Elon Musk's Starlink. The same Starlink that is now being forced to be used throughout all of our air traffic control towers and is being integrated into the United States government internet services. Do you understand where I'm going with this? A billionaire who already publicly bragged openly about rigging the election in the first place, plundered our treasury, stole our Social Security information, and then deleted every agency and member that could have actually audited his crimes, and then force the government to sign contracts to his companies. That same guy is issuing Starlink, whatever the terminals, to these protesters to get the word out about how bad Iran is. Do y'all not see the parallels here? And Amy Goodman isn't bringing that point up. Now, I get it. That's not the point of this particular news story, and maybe she does bring it up later, but it's these little details that if they are omitted or overlooked or passed over or outright ignored, doesn't tell the whole story, and the whole story makes it so much more terrifying than the subtle detail itself. And that's all I was trying to get there.
At least 100 bodies held in bags await identification at a morgue in Tehran. We'll hear from the world-renowned Iranian filmmaker Jafar Panahi later in the broadcast. The State Department said Wednesday it'll indefinitely halt processing visas for immigrants from 75 countries after claiming without evidence people from those nations often receive public benefits after arriving in the U.S.
I'm pretty sure she's going to state this, but no immigrants receive any benefits from anywhere in the U.S. because you can't. There are none. There might be several programs that exist, like for refugees and such like that, but for your regular just immigration, like a person that's moving to the United States or working in the United States, they don't get any more social programs. They don't have access to, because none exist. Now, somebody did bring up the point, well, California does. Okay, well, that's one state, and they have also shuttered that policy because it blew through their entire surplus, or it was one of the many things that contributed to blowing through the surplus. So either which way you look at it, the immigrants, no immigrant is getting special benefits or access to special benefits. Also, I'm sorry, this guy right here, doesn't he look like the Twilight guy? I don't know his actual name, but is this not the guy from Twilight? Okay, that was distracting. I'm sorry.
Immigrants from over a third of the world's 193 countries will be affected by the sweeping restrictions, which are set to begin January 21st among the...
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to highlight the racism involved, too. Of course I did, because the distressing nature of, the defense of it was the problem, right? But no, the racial discrimination on the 75 countries, which we can look that up real quick. I imagine one of these will finally add it in a nice, comprehensive... Of course not! Oh, okay, yes. All right, so Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, Antigua, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Bahamas, Bangladesh, Barbados, Belarus, Belize, Bhutan, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Brazil, Cambodia, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Colombia, of course Colombia because we're about to invade them, the Ivory Coast, Cuba because we want to invade them too, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Dominica, Egypt, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Fiji, Gambia, Georgia, Ghana, Grenada, Guatemala, Guinea, Haiti, Iran, shocking, Iraq, Jamaica, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Kuwait, which is weird because we have bases in... No, wait, I was thinking of Qatar. Never mind. Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Lebanon, Liberia, Libya, Macedonia, Moldova, Mongolia, Montenegro, Morocco, Myanmar, Nepal, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Pakistan, the other Republic of Congo? Okay, so there's... Okay, yeah. Ruskovia, Rwanda, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Senegal, Sierra Leone, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, Syria, Tanzania, Thailand, which is, again, ironic because we are sending missiles and other military armaments to bolster Thai sovereignty against Chinese hegemony. Togo, Tunisia, Uganda, Uruguay, Uzbekistan, and Yemen. So those are the 75 countries. We will actually want to make that a quick reference, I think. So basically, every brown and black country in the world, and Middle Eastern country in the world, is being listed right now. Pretty much. Like, I'd say, well, okay, maybe not pretty much all of them. It's not like it's 99% of them. I'd say like 80% of the global South and Middle East are on this list already. And that is extremely telling, because what wasn't on that list was anybody from Europe, Canada, surprisingly Mexico. Surprisingly Mexico. And actually, we didn't see Venezuela either. Because that would have been here, TUV, right? So that's ironic, but that's because we conquered Venezuela and now we are occupying it, right? So a very interesting set of countries that are being discriminated against, right? So the context.
Targets are Afghanistan, Brazil, Colombia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen. This comes on top of total or partial travel bans on visitors from 39 countries. In Minnesota, federal agents fired tear gas, pepper balls, and stun grenades at protesters who gathered late Wednesday near the scene where a federal agent shot and injured a man in North Minneapolis. Mayor Jacob Frey said after the shooting that details remain unclear, even as he once again condemned ICE's surge of agents into the Twin Cities. Witnesses told the Star Tribune a series of gunshots followed a car chase and foot chase involving federal agents who reportedly ordered residents to come out of their homes with their hands up.
Again, and we're probably going to be saying this a lot today, just like we have been all week and the past few months. ICE does not have policing authority. It does not have arrest authority other than with a warrant for a very specific immigrant that warrant is directing at, right? ICE does not have the right to go door to door, which is what instigated this, right? A door-to-door knock. Come out with your hands up. You can't. ICE literally doesn't have the authority to do that. You know who else doesn't have the authority to do that? Any policing agency, any federal agency, any state agency, any county agency, or any local agency. No agencies, no law enforcement have that authority. None. Not a single one of them. So the fact ICE is doing that, ICE instigated this entire thing and then chased people to the point of shooting at them, just goes to show how lawless, unhinged, unchecked, and unregulated ICE has become. And it's not like we can't do anything about it. It's not like there aren't options to address these issues. It's the fact that nobody in Congress is willing to do so, which is one of the many reasons why I am running for Congress and why I have my 50 signatures to get on the ballot and why I'm acquiring more, so that when I submit those signatures, they don't try to write me off the ballot by saying, you missed the threshold by just one, which they would. I mean, that's exactly the kind of unscrupulous behavior that these garbage pieces of shit engage upon. We have J.D. Vance to blame for this. It requires a court order as well. Right. It requires is it a judicial warrant or is it an administrative warrant? Like, it's still, I mean, it needs an official court, like, judge signature. Not one of these ICE administrator judges, but like a legitimate judicial court, mandated, issued, whatever have you. What's the word I was looking for now? Warrant. Jeez. To do that. And no, I don't blame J.D. Vance. I think this is really Stephen Miller, Tom Homan, maybe Naomi Klein, or Kristi Noem. Naomi Klein, I don't know who that is. Anyway, Kristi Noem. I think it's the administration. I don't think Trump's smart enough, and I don't think J.D. Vance is smart enough to orchestrate these kinds of things. The fact that the fear and the violence is the goal is something that they obviously have the stomach for and the desire to pull off. But I think the masterminding is more than likely Stephen Miller or Tom Homan. It's definitely not J.D. Vance.
Several people, including children, then walked out into the freezing cold. According to the Trump administration, the gunshot victim was shot in the leg. The administration said after he began to resist arrest and, quote, violently assault an officer.
Well, everybody has the right to resist unlawful arrest. Although, I guess that's not entirely true anymore because the Supreme Court continues to rule in favor of law enforcement. But again, and cannot be emphasized enough, ICE is not law enforcement. They're not. They just aren't. No matter how many different ways they would like to say they are and how much they act as if they are not. And they never will be. Well, I shouldn't say never. I mean, this administration might convince Congress to give them policing authority, but why bother going through those motions when they're exercising them without having the authority in the first place, right? So, anywho.
Minneapolis has recorded 3 shootings since New Year's Day. 2 of them were by federal agents. In a video statement released shortly before the latest shooting, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz condemned what he called a, quote, campaign of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government.
Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live.
That's literally what the Nazis did. That isn't figuratively or metaphorically what the Nazis did. That is factually, verbatim, unequivocally the historical facts of what the Nazis did. The Gestapo, the SS. So the fact that ICE is literally doing the same thing, where are your neighbors? Where are the brown people? Where are your immigrants? That's not a parallel. That's not a similarity. That is exactly the same thing.
They're pulling over people indiscriminately, including U.S. citizens, and demanding to see their papers. And at grocery stores, at bus stops, even at our schools, they're breaking windows, dragging pregnant women down the street, just plain grabbing Minnesotans and shoving them into unmarked vans, kidnapping innocent people with no warning and no due process.
Among
And among all the things that he could be doing, all he's doing is speaking directly into the camera and effectively nothing else. Again, he's deployed the National Guard and has used it to maintain order against protesters, when he should be ordering the National Guard to expel ICE, which I think segues perfectly into this jobs. Motherfucker. Hold on a second. Let me sign in again without doxing myself. Okay. So, remember that meme, that article that's been going around of the journalist who applied to ICE and got accepted despite being a journalist, and there's no background checks or nothing, and it's just, hey, here you've started, here you go to Minnesota, right? Yeah. So this is where you go. It's called USA Jobs, and typically you have to create a new account, and then it has to be a .gov login. So it's actually a bit of a endeavor to get to this point. So I found the deportation officer job, right, which for your viewing pleasure is this, but I thought this had the specific deal. Like the job code? Okay. Well, anyway, if you go to USA Jobs and you find deportation officer, this button right here would be apply now. Well, I have already applied. So I get to go to edit my application, and this is the part that really gets fucked, okay? Continue to agency website. So it starts on USA Jobs, and then it takes you to DHS. Well, so it timed out on me earlier, and I was trying to save it so that I could show. Why the fuck? Okay, let's try clearing cookies then. Alrighty. Well, unfortunately, we're gonna just have to close all of this. Okay, so where? Okay. Oh my god, of course. Oh, obviously, I have to log back in. Well, I guess I am logged in. Profile? My jobs? Alright. Are you shitting me? Okay, well... that's a problem. Son of a bitch. All right. Well, here's an idea. What if... well... it's literally trying to say that I didn't sign in, which I'm not getting. I'm not understanding that. Why is this not working? Okay, well, if you apply to this, I guess don't let it time out on you or else it'll break. Okay. All right, let's try this again. First, we're gonna want to do the stream list so you guys can see what I'm doing here. Throw that in there. It's this announcement number. That was... whoops. Why did this... there we go. Let's try that. Okay. I guess I doxed myself via email. All of the Nazis applying because they think they're going to make 200K is crashing the site. That could very well be true. So this is the specific announcement number, right? For specifically this, but I am fairly certain I can find another one. Because look, there's instructor, supervisor, senior, and administrative. It definitely seems like you can't withdraw. Of course, you could always just contact your local ICE agency department. I wanted to show you that meme where it had the 5 loyalty questions to the Trump administration was very much so real. That was not a joke. That was not a drill. That was 100% part of the thing. And it's not letting me get in here now. I don't get it. Why aren't you allowing me in? Okay, well, I guess I won't. But, suffice to say, this is the announcement number. You can apply to it yourself, and you'll see it's asking you all the loyalty questions, and then it's also saying, will you obey lawful orders? Are you willing to commit murder? Are you willing to kill? It's all sorts of wild shit, and apparently if it times out on you, that's all you can do. You have to make a new account. So, well, I don't know if you have to make a whole new account, but it definitely will time out on you, and I don't understand why that's an issue. Actually, site settings. Let's try this. Still nothing. Yes! We're in it, folks! We're in it! Okay. We're in it. Alright, so. Oh my god. So, oh shit, I just doxed myself. Oh well. I guess I... okay, conditions of employment. Well, see, now I kind of have to make sure. Okay, you know what? All right. Okay. That didn't help at all, did it? Okay. So, how has your commitment to the Constitution and the founding principles of the United States inspired you to pursue this role within the federal government? Provide a concrete example from professional, academic, or personal experience. That doesn't even make sense. Like, what is that even asking? But the fact that it's commitment to the Constitution while doing no-knock warrants, warrantless breaches of the Fourth Amendment on American citizens. In this role, how would you use your skills and experience to improve government efficiency and effectiveness? Okay. How would you help advance the president's executive orders and policy priorities in this role? Identify one or two relevant EOs or policy initiatives that are significant to you and explain how you would help implement them if hired. Again, I want to kill all illegals as the Lord and Commander dictates. How has a strong work ethic contributed to your professional, academic, or personal achievements? Provide one or two specific examples and explain how those qualities would enable you to serve effectively in this position. And I certify that the above responses are in my own words and that I did not use or consult artificial intelligence. Honestly, I was about to use artificial intelligence to write those. And then, of course, the rest of these have to do with law enforcement, which is, again, not what ICE is. Have you ever done law enforcement training? Have you ever been polygraphed? They mentioned that a couple times. You can travel. You can be assigned at short notice. Will you be able to execute or follow lawful policies that may conflict with your personal or religious customs? Correctional roading shifts. Well, you will be working alone in remote areas throughout the night or at times when you may have limited communication and may be at high risk. Life-threatening situation. Do you feel you can use deadly force? Again, there is no reason in which any ICE agent should be in a deadly force situation because they should have a judicial warrant for a very specific immigrant and not just, terrorizing communities. Comprehensive medical exams, background check, drug screen, right? The physically demanding natures. Can you do a kneel to stand test, 10 changes of position within 25 seconds, followed by 2 minutes of upright kneeling, followed by coming to a full standing position, 15 push-ups, a 5-minute cardiovascular test? Oh, endurance step. You have to step 16 inches high. Will be conducted at a cadence of 96 steps per minute. Will you comply with this requirement? And apparently people aren't able to comply with this. Valid driver's license. DD-214. That's military stuff. So yeah. That is the application. So. I'm going to go ahead and... I think I will finish that up just to see if they actually take me without any sort of further prudence undertaken. But that is exactly how comical and ludicrously just fascist the application itself is. It really does make you respond with loyalty questions, and it does point out you can't answer with AI, which is incredible, to be honest.
Cold. According to the Trump administration, the gunshot victim was shot in the leg. The administration's lane of organized brutality against the people of Minnesota by our own federal government.
Armed, masked, undertrained ICE agents are going door to door, ordering people to point out where their neighbors of color live.
Been swept up by ICE's campaign of racial profiling are 4 members of the Oglala Sioux tribe, 3 of whom remain jailed in an ICE facility at Fort Snelling, south of the Twin Cities.
And, if you want to call anybody in this country an immigrant, you could call literally anybody an immigrant. White people, brown people, black people, doesn't matter. You could call literally anybody under the sun an immigrant. Except for indigenous peoples. And the fact that ICE is kidnapping and detaining indigenous First Nations, Native American, however you want to call it, whatever the most proper way is, they are going after First Nations, indigenous peoples as well. And they are trying to force themselves onto a treaty land to conduct immigration raids as well. And they are holding these natives hostage to force the tribal leaders to comply. I mean, this is not about immigration. This is definitely not about immigration. It is literally the Nazi Sprach of getting all of the undesirables out of America. Nothing more and nothing less.
It's the same site where, in 1862, U.S. forces imprisoned about 1,700...
Wait, what did you say? I'm subscribed to Vosh? Who's Vosh? Hold on. What is Vosh? Isn't the subscription supposed to be on the side? Oh, Vosh. Okay. Vosh. Oh, you know what? I was probably subscribed because we were gonna troll Vosh as part of our streams and try and antagonize him, and then that didn't end up happening. So we will unsubscribe. Good catch.
100 indigenous men, women, children, and elders following the U.S.-Dakota War, where many died of torture, starvation, and disease. Survivors were exiled to reservations in what's now South Dakota. In California, 21-year-old Caden Rumler says he was left permanently blind in one eye and narrowly avoided death after a federal agent fired on fired a crowd control weapon into his face during an anti-ICE protest in Santa Ana last week. Rumler had joined the protests against the killing of Renee Good by an ICE agent in Minneapolis when a federal agent fired a so-called less lethal round at close range that struck his left eye.
Which, by the way, and we've covered this multiple times, less than lethal rounds are meant to be fired from 30 yards away and at the ground, not at a person, because they are still high velocity traveling projectiles that 100% can damage or kill individuals, and have constantly and consistently, because these officers and these agents are not properly trained, or even if they are properly trained, in the heat of the moment, they let rage and anger drive their actions, and then they turn the weapon directly on the person because they want that person to suffer. So less than lethal doesn't mean less than that you can't get hurt from it. It means that if it hits you point blank, you likely won't die. But that's also not true, because had it hit his throat, it could have crushed his windpipe. If it had hit him in the temple, it could have killed him outright. Like, it's obscene that these actions are occurring by agents or law enforcement officers, and that it's just simply being reported and not universally condemned, because these are crimes against humanity. These are violations of the First Amendment. Like, this is exactly why we have a Bill of Rights, and yet nobody is actually fighting for our rights. At least not the people who seem to have the authority. We have to now exercise our own rights on our own behalf, and just have to start doing it in much greater numbers.
He was then dragged by an agent across a plaza, his face covered in blood, as he complained, "I can't breathe." He says he pleaded for agents to call an ambulance as they mocked him about his injured eye. He ultimately underwent 6 hours of surgery to remove plastic, glass, and metal from his face and skull, with one piece narrowly missing his carotid artery.
Which would have killed him, right? Because arterial nicks or cuts or whatever, that's a death sentence. Like, that's within literal seconds. Like, I think you have 2 minutes to live at that point. So the fact that he got shot in the face by agents who were allegedly trained, and then mocked by said agents, just goes to show these people, these agents, are not human beings. They aren't. They are scum. They are malevolent monsters. They are demons. They are the filth, the dregs of society that revel in violence and in bullying efforts. So, ICE agents, as such, need to be held criminally accountable for the war criminals and crimes against humanity that they are. And why do I say war crimes? Because using tear gas against civilians is a war crime. Shooting and killing civilians as an agent of the state is against the law, right? It is a crime against humanity. It's just the nature of it, right? These people are being deployed to our cities and engaging in combat activities against civilians. Hence, it follows suit to the crimes against humanity and war crimes.
Rumler says doctors told him it was a miracle he survived. An investigation by ProPublica has documented over 40 cases in which federal immigration agents use potentially fatal chokeholds and other moves that can cut off breathing against immigrant citizens and protesters. Former police and immigration officials who reviewed the footage called the agents out of control, with one calling it, quote, the kind of action which should get you fired, unquote.
Well, no, not fired. Arrested and charged for attempted murder. And the fact that even former agents and officers are saying this shit, I mean, look at this kid. This kid is being held at the neck with his hand behind his back on concrete. Like, that is 100% a dangerous situation for anybody, let alone a child. And they are attacking kids, this teenager, other teenagers. They threw a flashbang grenade in a van with 6 kids in it, including an infant, and all of those children are now in the hospital, right? They are not hiring the best and the brightest. They are hiring scum, thugs, criminals, murderers and would-be whatever else that are chomping at the bit to harm other people. They are signing up to get paid to fulfill their most disgusting fantasies of harming people with the full support of the government backing them.
Meanwhile, top officials in Maine are warning ICE agents are preparing to surge federal agents into the cities of Lewiston and Portland, where, according to MS Now, they're set to target Somali refugees in the coming weeks. On Tuesday, the Trump administration...
I just want to point out that Maine is receiving surges, Massachusetts is receiving surges, Ohio is surging, Minnesota is getting ridiculous amounts of surge, right? And pretty much all of this is happening immediately after the fact this administration said, we are going to stop surging in the country. So no, that didn't happen. It's not going to happen. This is the second Civil War, and it is fought between the state and the people. Not the North and the South, but the state and the people. So really, I guess it would be the Second Revolutionary War, except the revolution that's being kicked off is state-sponsored murder and oppression of the population. So the question is very quickly becoming, are we going to stand for it? Are we going to tolerate it? Or are we going to exercise our rights?
Administration ended temporary protected status for Somali immigrants, ordering them to leave the U.S. by March 17th. Danish Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen said there is a, quote, fundamental disagreement, unquote, with President Trump over Greenland, the semi-autonomous territory controlled by...
Right. The fundamental disagreement being Trump can't have Greenland just because he wants Greenland. It's a sovereign state. Well, semi-autonomous state.
Denmark. The comments came after the foreign ministers of Denmark and Greenland met with Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio Wednesday at the White House, as President Trump has repeatedly called for the U.S.
Just a bit of a petty observation, but can these guys stand any more awkwardly? Like, why wouldn't you put your hands in front of yourself like this lady is, or behind your back? Why would you stand with your arms at your side very awkwardly? And look, Rubio is struggling to stay in his suit. Like, this isn't a good look no matter how you slice it.
U.S. to militarily...
Let's see, and the supporters of this disgusting crap. Welcome to the stream, Pop. Have the nerve to say that they can't coexist in a country with people who disagree with this? Well, to borrow a phrase commonly used by them, if you don't like it, then leave. Yeah. Start a family, they said. It's the way things go, they said. No. They want more babies so they can grow up to get choke held. Yeah, no. The blatant hypocrisy of conservatives who are cheering this fascism on while condemning it in Iran, or condemning it when it's Democrats doing it, or, liberals and their feelings, if you don't like it, leave, are the first to go crying wolf when something happens that marginally inconveniences them. Or, again, as I said, the hypocrisy of Iran. 1,100 days to go? Yeah, see, I wouldn't bet on that. I just wouldn't. I mean, a lot can happen in 1,100 days. A lot can happen in 110 days. A lot can happen in 11 days. And actually, 11 days from, I think it was yesterday, is when Greenland is supposed to meet for the first time to discuss security concerns of Greenland with the United States, right? So, realistically, we should brace ourselves for elections being canceled. That is the more likely outcome than by the end of this term, somebody else gets elected and starts undoing the harm that has been caused for the past 4 years. Realistically, and I say I'm the president, I am your next president. I do, right? I believe that wholeheartedly, but at the rate we're going, it doesn't seem like it'll be through elections, but rather than through other means, right? No, 11 days. 11 days, I believe it is. 1,100 days, we might not have a country. Actually, what is 110 days from now? It's the primaries. So we will see what the election cycle is going to look like in 110 days if the primaries aren't rigged or heavily influenced by police, military, or ICE presence.
Take over Greenland. Here's Denmark's Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen.
For us, ideas that would not respect territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark and the right of self-determination of the Greenlandic people are, of course, totally unacceptable. And we therefore still have a fundamental disagreement, but we also agree to disagree. And therefore we will, however, continue to talk.
President Trump.
We agree to disagree with invading our territory, but we'll try and talk you down because we still can't wrap our head around the fact that you're this stupid and insane and trying to destroy a 70-year-old or 80-year-old treaty which guarantees our mutual defense and has maintained, at the very least, global stability rather than geopolitical war and conflict between major powers since the end of World War II. It's like, we don't understand why you would want to destroy this state of affairs. It's like you want to go to war with Russia, China, and Iran all at once, which is a stupid thing to do. So the Danish Prime Minister is like, we will talk to you because we cannot understand why you would be doing something so breathtakingly stupid, and hopefully your sycophants will start to listen. But if not, well, our allies, your allies, are deploying to Greenland to stop you if you are so stupid in carrying out your threat.
Trump's Middle East envoy says a U.S. brokered plan to end Israel's assault on the Gaza Strip has entered its second phase. Steve Witkoff made the announcement.
What second phase? Israel hasn't stopped murdering Palestinians, and Palestinians are dying due to exposure. Like this, what second phase? Where you murder them without all the cameras on you now?
Announcement in a social media post writing Gaza is, quote, moving from ceasefire to demilitarization, technocratic governance, and reconstruction.
So from ceasefire to demilitarization, technocratic governance, and reconstruction. That is literally one of the most disturbing lines I have ever heard, and we've already been talking about ICE today. Technocratic governance and reconstruction. That is literally the basis for, I think, half of all sci-fi dystopian content is technocratic governance and the demilitarization of a group, i.e. the disarming of a group, and then being led by essentially the tech lords of modern times like Elon Musk. That is literally half of all sci-fi dystopian novels and material and media. What a fucking shit show.
Quote. Witkoff added, quote, the U.S. expects Hamas to comply fully with its obligations, including the immediate return of the final deceased hostage. Failure to do so will bring serious consequences, unquote. Witkoff made no mention of Israel's frequent ceasefire violations. Gaza officials say Israel's broken the truce about 1,200 times since it took effect October 10th, killing over 440 Palestinians.
So, I mean, 1,200 times they violated it, killing over 400 Palestinians. And they're still demanding the bodies that are buried in rubble and God knows what else. Unbelievable.
On Tuesday, yet another winter storm swept over Gaza, flooding hundreds of tents and collapsing homes, sheltering families displaced by more than 2 years of Israel's assault. At least 6 people have died from the latest storm, including 2 women and a girl, killed when homes collapsed near Gaza City's beach, and a 1-year-old boy who died of hypothermia in a tent in Deir al-Balah. This is Nagma Afilma, a 12-year-old Palestinian displaced with 9 family members in Gaza City.
So those deaths are still attributed to Israel, but they're not counted to Israel's murder count because it's exposure to the elements. The elements that are being exposed because Israel literally demolished through bombing the entire Gaza Strip.
City.
Last night, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like this on ordinary days. I've never seen anything like it. We were drowning. Our clothes that we had became wet. We have nothing to wear. We are children. We want. Our 2 mattresses were soaked. Our covers were soaked. Our pillows that we sleep on were soaked. Our tent is filled with water.
A Senate War Powers resolution,
Which is going to lead to even more deaths. That family is probably going to die due to the elements, due to exposure, due to hypothermia, due to whatever. As are a majority of the Palestinians if this shit continues and they are not given the aid and support that they need. Which is, again, the point. We are watching the final solution unfold in the Gaza Strip via Israel. And we're watching the beginning stages of the final solution unfold now in the United States against brown and black people. We are like, if you think that what's happening now in the United States stops with just cities being occupied, then you clearly have not been paying attention. The goal truly is to eradicate 200 million people from the United States of America and leaving only 100 million white supremacist, ethno-Christians, whatever, left in the United States to have a true ethnocentric, white supremacist state. And there is no other way to say that. That is what this administration is pushing towards. And the likelihood that ICE starts indiscriminately murdering protesters is not that far around the corner. Again, we went from international outrage that ICE was deployed to Los Angeles within the first couple of months of this administration to international outrage that the National Guard was deployed to several states, to international outrage of the conditions that these immigrants are facing, the fact that they're being trafficked and kidnapped off the streets, to the normalization of those very same presences, of those very same terrible conditions and being trafficked across the globe, right? And now, the violence against protesters and citizens, the door-to-door knocks and raids are becoming normalized. There is only so many steps left before it is killing citizens in the street. I'm not saying that because I want to see it or because it's hyperbole. It's because that's literally how it started with Gaza. It's how it started in Germany. It's how it started with all the other genocides and massacres. It's how it started in the U.S. Revolutionary War. It's how it started with the Civil War. It's how it started with the regime change. This is how it always starts. And it only ever ends with extreme violence. And then that government, that fascist dictatorship, only ends with either foreign interventionism or massive civil violent protest, i.e. revolution. So,
resolution aimed at limiting President Trump's authority to take further military action against Venezuela failed Wednesday after 2 Republican senators, Josh Hawley and Todd Young, withdrew their support.
So Congress has officially how do I want to phrase this? Surrendered their constitutional authority to declare war and to prevent the president from unilaterally using the military as they see fit. So, I guess as far as democracy goes, we don't even have 3 branches anymore. We barely have 2, because the judicial branch is kind of pushing back against this administration, but not really. But the legislative has completely capitulated to the executive. So, again, I've said this quite a few times. We haven't been a democracy for a while now, especially through this administration. But if there were any illusions left that we were a functioning democracy, like that right there should prove otherwise.
Vice President J.D. Vance cast the tie-breaking vote to dismiss the measure. Meanwhile, the U.S. completed its first sale of Venezuelan oil, valued at about...
Which... the vice president shouldn't even be allowed to vote against the War Powers Resolution. Because, again, the War Powers being in the hands of Congress is written into the Constitution. And the fact that Congress had to, reiterate that fact and then failed to do so is itself a problem, but doesn't change the fact that it's written in the Constitution. And that the vice president then did the deciding vote to undermine the Constitution is itself unconstitutional. We are watching crimes against democracy, crimes against humanity being committed in real time and barely making a blip in the bylines.
$500 million. Semaphore reports the revenue from the oil sales is currently being held in bank accounts controlled by the U.S. government, and that the main account is being held in Qatar. On Wednesday, President Trump told reporters he held a very good call with Venezuela's interim leader, Delcy Rodriguez, calling her terrific. He's also expected to meet with the Venezuelan opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado, today at the White House.
How is Maria the opposition leader? She's literally the largest bootlicking scum for Trump in Venezuela. You know, Amy, I get that you're just kind of summarizing the headlines, but this is bleak. I feel like you're dropping the ball.
Meanwhile, in Venezuela, pro-government protesters have been gathering daily, calling for the release of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, from U.S. custody.
The empire can do whatever it wants, but we are here to tell them that we are free, sovereign, and independent. They can meet with whoever they want, but they have to meet with those who represent the government today. They have to free Nicolas Maduro and Celia Flores, our president.
FBI agents raided...
And guess what's not being reported in the news? That.
Raided the home of Washington Post reporter Hannah Nathanson on Wednesday. Authorities seized her phone, 2 laptops, and a Garmin watch. She spent the past year covering the Trump administration's efforts to fire the federal workforce. Matt Murray, the executive editor of the Washington Post, said in a staff message, quote, "This extraordinary, aggressive action is deeply concerning and raises profound questions and concern around the constitutional protections for our work," unquote.
Right. Because they have literally been eroding every protection in the Constitution, starting with checks and balances, and been working their way down ever since. This extraordinary aggressive action is deeply concerning and raises profound questions and concern around the constitutional protections for our work, i.e. a free press, right? Well, you've been reporting gleefully about the violence against protesters for decades. Now that the barrel is finally turning against you, and no amount of spewing the propaganda is going to protect you, you are now being like, I can't believe the party of leopards that eat my face are releasing leopards to eat my face. I thought because I was supporting the leopards that were eating faces, that they wouldn't eat mine. And now they're eating mine, and now I'm concerned about it. Like, bruh. Like, this is the natural course of things. She's the opposition leader because she leads the opposition to Maduro. Yeah, well, the fact that Amy is regurgitating that is what has me deeply concerned. If we lose Amy in democracy now, we literally don't have anything left. We don't. We legitimately are out of news sources then that have stood their ground without capitulating. And honestly, when it comes to Venezuela, they strike me as a little questionable at best.
Quote, according to the Washington Post, investigators reportedly told Nathanson she wasn't the target of the probe. A warrant obtained by the paper cited an investigation into a government contractor with a top secret security clearance who's been accused of taking home classified intelligence reports.
You're not the target of our probe, but we're going to take your stuff anyway.
In a statement, Attorney General Pam Bondi said the warrant was executed at the request of the Pentagon and that Perez Lugones had been arrested. We'll have more on this story after headlines.
So Pete Hegseth ordered the arrest of a journalist because she was doing her job, which flagrantly violates the First Amendment. Yeah, Richard Nixon wishes he could have even had a fraction of this kind of influence, power, authority, capitulation of the government to his will. Like, there's nothing else to say. Like, I'm still not really understanding. I mean, I do understand, don't get me wrong. But it's mind-blowing that Trump got elected his first term, was unsuccessful at achieving anything of merit, but then managed to create a massive cult following with institutional support in 4 years, got enough of the House and Senate elected that would aid and abet his crimes, got reelected to the presidency, and then had a fully supportive, full-throated supporting legislative and judicial branch to let him get away with everything under the sun, to include murder. Like, it's crazy to me that in 4 years he did what he couldn't do in his first term. That's insane to me. Right, he successfully did it. Which is crazy, which is absolutely batshit insane. Not that he did it alone, of course. He had a lot of help from the big tech industries and from all of the right-wing sociopaths. Again, he managed to get J.D. Vance on his side, who started calling him a Nazi in the beginning of his career, and is now the vice president. Like, money talks, apparently, within white supremacy circles. Or I guess white supremacy is more important than principles or any other principles.
Several Democratic lawmakers said Wednesday they're under investigation by the Justice Department over a social media post in which they reminded U.S. service members they have a duty to disobey illegal orders.
Which they do.
Congress members Jason Crow, Maggie Goodlander, Chrissy Houlihan, and Alyssa Slotkin received inquiries from U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro requesting interviews about their participation in this video posted last November.
My participation is I swore a fucking oath to this country, not to the dictator-in-chief or wannabe king. And it is U.S. law. It is the Uniform Code of Armed Conflict law. It's the Uniform Code of Military Justice. It's the Title 10, Title 18. It is law of the United States in absolute massive amounts of redundancy to disobey unlawful orders and to report them up the chain of command. I did my duty as a veteran and as a lawmaker. And that should be the end of discussion. And furthermore, the fact that you're trying to create an inquisition around this shows that you are the ones that are actually in the wrong. You're the criminals by issuing these orders and trying to target those, reminding people that these are illegal orders. So maybe you should get a deposition in the House of Representatives and be questioned as to why you are betraying the Constitution and the American people. How about them fucking apples?
You can refuse illegal orders.
You can refuse illegal orders.
You must refuse illegal orders.
No one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution.
Congressmember Slotkin said Wednesday she also received an inquiry from the FBI's Counterterrorism Division late last year. That followed President Trump's call for the lawmakers to be tried for treason and put to death.
To be clear, this is the president's playbook.
Yeah, and then the president calls these people traitors and calling for their deaths. Like, I'm calling for the deaths of this administration in its entirety because of their treasonous actions, right? And so, yeah. Well, what's the difference then? They're traitors to the country. How? By reminding people to not follow unlawful orders, you know, kind of like what the Nazis did. But, you see, I'm calling out the treasonous administration for treason, for committing treason and eroding our institutions, our democracy, and our Constitution. So, you know, advocating for their charges of treason and subsequent death penalty is well within the legal rights and is exactly why the Second Amendment exists. So I cannot emphasize enough that the playbook that we're seeing is extremely disturbing and indicative of authoritarianism, and it's not over until it's over, but it's going to be harder to push back if we don't start now.
Truth doesn't matter, facts don't matter, and anyone who disagrees with him becomes an enemy, and he then weaponizes the federal government against them. It's legal intimidation and physical intimidation meant to get you to shut up.
And President Trump toured a Ford auto plant in Dearborn, Michigan Tuesday, where an auto worker was caught on camera calling the president a pedophile protector. President Trump,
which is exactly what he is, and protected First Amendment free speech,
then gave the auto worker the middle finger and mouthed "F you" twice. Ford suspended the auto worker, TJ Sabula, without pay after his exchange with President Trump. Since then, GoFundMe campaigns have raised over $700,000 for Sabula. On Wednesday, Laura Dickerson, the United Auto Workers vice president and director of the Ford department, said in a statement, quote, "The auto worker at the Dearborn truck plant is a proud member of a strong and fighting union, the UAW. He believes in freedom of speech, a principle we wholeheartedly embrace, and we stand with our membership in protecting their voice on the job," unquote. Meanwhile, the Justice Department has released less than 1% of the Epstein files. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. Thanks for watching.
Well, that was a disturbing hour, to say the least. And it's also frustrating, like, all of this is really just unhinged stuff. Like, this is the stuff we read in histories, right? This is what we were told was happening in Russia, in China, in North Korea, in Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, where else? Yeah, African countries, right? Like the Congo and Guinea and Ghana and all these places, right? Or like when there were dictators in Argentina and Brazil and so on and so forth, right? And we're literally watching it happen in real time in the United States, and it's just completely going over everybody's head. Because it's impossible that it could happen in the United States. We're the least propagandized country in the world. We're the freest country in the world. Rah, rah, rah. And it's like, no. We are the most propagandized country in the world, and fascism has finally reared its ugly head in the United States exactly the way it was predicted. It will be brought to the United States as the Bible, or the cross, I think is the quote, wrapped in the American flag. And sure as shit, Christian nationalists and homosexuals have united under God and country to bring fascism to our doorstep, as well as genocide. So, well, genocide for the third time, I should say, because the first was slavery. The second was the massacre of indigenous peoples through Manifest Destiny. And now we're committing acts of genocide against all minority groups. We're claiming it's immigrants, but really we're going after indigenous peoples as well. We're going after protesters and Americans that dissent. So basically anybody who isn't a full-throated supporter of this administration and their activities are now being targeted. It's only a matter of time before it's open warfare. It really is. It is a matter of time before the pew-pew sticks get involved. And remember, this is a prop. This is just really good cosplay prop. Okay? Okay. So, that is where we are at. And it is not looking any better. Let's see. Still waiting on this AG getting her pay cut for calling for disobeying illegal orders like they're after them. I mean, she gets to do what she wants, no accountability, but they want accountability on Kelly and others for saying the same thing. I mean, yeah, that's the point, right? This hypocrisy is breathtaking. It is in your face. It is loud. It is proud. And it's, I mean, I don't know. I think it was a Star Wars quote, actually. The Empire, it is easier for the Empire to hide behind countless atrocities than it is to admit one mistake. And that is what this administration is doing. They better get their crap together if they want a pushback to be a pushback. Well, and he got punished for it. The factory people protected this craphead over the worker for saying he's a pedophile. But I bet if they called his predecessor a pedophile, they'd give the one who said it a 6-month paid vacation. Exactly. Now, the union says they're going to protect the worker, but who's to really say, right? Oh, boo-hoo, you show disrespect, you get punished for it, right? And you insulted the president, which is the best exercise of your First Amendment. And here's the thing. Obama was called racial slurs left, right, and center. And we don't stand Obama because he was also imperialist scum, but the man didn't react like this administration is reacting. Because, again, if he had done so, he probably would have been lynched by his own administration. So, again, the normalization of white supremacy because we had a black president, and then the escalation of white supremacy because we had a black president is not lost on me, although it does seem to be lost on many, many of our countrymen. Right. You bring up the very valid point, pop culture. Okay. Why not? Let's keep it going with ICE.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. We turn now to look at immigration detention expansion in Trump's second term. That's the focus of a new report released today by the American Immigration Council. For more, we go to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by the Council's senior fellow, Aaron Reichlin-Melnick. Aaron, welcome back to Democracy Now! Lay out your findings on who's being arrested, who's being detained, where they're being detained, and the size of these jails.
Yeah, what we are seeing and what we lay out in this report is that ICE detention has expanded dramatically in Trump's first year back in office. The entire system is 75% larger today than it was when he took office.
So the secret police force, which isn't even a police force, expanded its detention capabilities by 75% in approximately 12 months. Nothing to see here, nothing but good old democracy in action.
As of this week, 70,000 people being held in detention on any given day, up from 40,000 when President Trump took office. And that is driven by...
And let's be very clear, 40,000 immigrant detainees is still an excessively high number. Because why in the actual fuck are we detaining 40,000 people who are immigrants in the first place? If we really are that concerned about illegal immigration or crimes being committed by immigrants, then why would we put them in concentration camps and not in the prison system that we actually have? Or deport them back to their home country, but actually deport them, not traffic them to a death camp in El Salvador.
By the new arrest policies, which are leading to the mass detention of people with no criminal record whatsoever. In fact, the single largest increase in ICE detention usage is among people who have had no interactions with the criminal justice system at all, who are being arrested in these brand new sweeping policies, such as the use of roving patrols, worksite raids, and the arrest of people at courthouses and immigration check-ins.
Which is all extremely illegal and precisely the same shit that the Nazis did. Now, I guess Nazis wouldn't have kidnapped Jewish people at courthouses, because I don't think Jewish people had to go to courthouses for any reason whatsoever. So not only are we doing exactly what Nazis did, which is target Jewish people wherever they may happen to be, we are also expanding that further by adding more places and then mandating that the Jewish people, that the immigrants have to show up to these places and then pull the wool out from under them, or the rug out from under them, and arrest them anyway. Like, we are committing more atrocities and inventing more atrocities against immigrants than the Nazis did against the Jewish population. Just for context.
You note that change.
Yeah. And then how many of them are U.S. citizens on top of that? I think one of the statistics I heard and read or saw was that it was several hundred.
Changes in ICE's arrest practices have led to well over 2,000% increase in the number of people with no criminal records being held in ICE jails on any given day. Aaron.
That's right. In fact, if you look at just the last few months, since the start of fiscal year 2026, so October 1st, 92% of the growth in ICE detention has been among people who have no interaction with the criminal justice system.
So, statistically, objectively, historically, factually, the people that this administration are going after are not criminals in any capacity, are most certainly not the worst of the worst. So again, it is simply misinformation wrapped in propaganda that racists are eating up like it is the Last Supper.
The system in general expanded by about 5,000 beds over that period, and almost all of that increase came among people who have no criminal record, no prior convictions, or pending criminal charges. An unprecedented situation for immigration detention.
Largely because immigration detention was a thing that was invented in 2003. And we didn't even have an immigration agency or department until after the Civil War because of racism. So, yeah, unprecedented, but also unnecessary, and also a natural course of events that stemmed from not murdering every single member of the Confederacy.
Can you talk about the unprecedented scale of federal funding for ICE in Trump's new term? With the funding provided by what he calls, and many deride, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, ICE has enough money to operate upwards of 135,000 detention beds through the end of 2029. Congress voted to give ICE a total of $45 billion for ICE immigration detention through the end of the fiscal year 2029.
That's right. So when Trump took office, ICE's budget was for detention was $3.4 billion. That is a staggering sum of money already, and it let ICE detain on average 41,500 people on any given day. But thanks to the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill Act, ICE now has an average annual budget of $15 billion over the next 4 years. By comparison,
well, that's not true, because they got $250 billion to expand for recruitment, training, and so on and so forth. So I don't know why you're saying just $15 billion, but I digress.
in the entire Federal Bureau of Prisons, their budget is less than $9 billion. So ICE's detention budget alone is larger than the entire budget of the federal prison system.
Which should be sending alarm bells to everybody. If the entire federal prison system is getting less money than ICE, which is allegedly only supposed to be dealing with immigrants, and only criminal immigrants at that, and the reality is that an overwhelming number of immigrants that are currently sitting in detention don't have any criminal records whatsoever and are being kidnapped off the fucking street and from their homes and from their job sites. What do you think is eventually going to happen? And also, 170,000 is not the 65 million Latinos that are in America. That is not the 200 million people that they are trying to get rid of to whittle us down to 100 million Aryan race Americans. So that should send different alarm bells. If we only have the capacity for 70,000 now and 140,000 later, and we're already over capacity of that 70,000, which was resulting in deaths, malnutrition, and disease, then the goal isn't to actually maintain 70,000 prisoners, but it is to cull people until they fit into 70,000 spaces, and then not report the numbers of those who were culled. And I'm using that word specifically because this is systemic erasure, murder, capturing, kidnapping, and trafficking of an entire group of people. And really, it's any minority group in the country, which is half the population, or arguably 2/3 of the population, if that whole 100 million thing is the statistic they're going for. So we are building concentration camps to hold 70,000 people at a given time, and then those numbers seem to not fluctuate much, and yet we are arresting, kidnapping, and trafficking thousands per day. Mind you, the current quota is 7,000 a day, meaning in 10 days we would fill every single bed that we have. In 20 days, it would be double population. In 30 days, it would be triple population. And we're not reporting on that at all. So if we've been at a 7,000 person quota for months, 90 days, that would be 630,000. No. Yes. 630,000 detainees. People who were kidnapped and trafficked. And there is no way that any of these facilities could handle 9 times the number that they're built for. Which means, what is happening to the other 620,000? Just by using that kind of statistical number. $15 billion to blow the deficit up further. That's not even the primary concern. That's like barely on the list. But yes, it makes a difference. Guantanamo is too good for these shitheads doing this trash. I agree. And then, yes, the poem. And nobody was there to speak for me. 100%. We're actually at the second to last stanza where they're coming for me, because they're ramping up everybody else all at once. So it's not like, okay, we got these guys, now we're going after them. It's kind of like we're going after everybody that isn't white supremacist America all at once, and then we're going to turn on the remaining of white America until it's just white supremacists left.
And that puts ICE on track by the end of Trump's second term in office to rival the federal prison system in sheer size.
So, does this rapid expansion of immigration detention also lead to more deaths? Let's remember, most of the people in these jails have not committed any crime.
Yes, and we have already seen 2025 be the deadliest year on record for ICE detention, and 4 people have died in ICE detention just in the first 2 weeks of 2026. So
if we're averaging 4 deaths every 2 weeks, so that's 2 a week, that's going to be 104, which is triple the amount of deaths of 2025. More than triple the deaths.
We're on track for another deadlier year. And that's because they are rushing people through the system and expanding too quickly. When they put a new tent camp online in Texas on Fort Bliss that is set to hold 5,000 people called Camp East Montana, in the first month that it was open, internal government watchdogs found dozens of violations because they were throwing together the facility so fast that they couldn't have it fully prepared and safe for the people in it. And indeed, one of the 4 deaths this year did occur at that facility.
And is there any reason why Aaron is not mentioning the fact that these are concentration camps like Nazi Germany? Like, why? We are on Democracy Now! There is no funding that they receive from the federal government. There is no influence they receive from the federal government. So why are you hesitating to throw this administration, this regime, under the bus and point out that for the amount of deportations and arrests that are being made and the amount of spaces that exist and the absolute heinous conditions of the spaces being built, the numbers don't add up. And there is probably more deaths and more suffering occurring on U.S. soil than is being reported. So why are you not bringing those topics up? Oh, because there's no physical evidence? Okay, 7,000 times 90 is 630,000. Yes. So if that's been the rate of arrests, are we saying there's a lot more catch and releases going on than what we assume? For every 9 arrests, 1 is let out. I'm finding it extremely hard to believe that that's what's happening. So, or I'm sorry, for every 9 arrests, 8 are released or deported or whatever. I'm telling you right now, whatever we think is happening and however bad we think it is right now, whenever the truth finally comes out, it is going to be exponentially worse. We officially have death camps. We are underreporting the actual occurrences within these death camps because we are the ICE agents are refusing to allow reporters and Congress members to go into these facilities in the first place. And of course, obviously, you can't trust anything coming out of DHS or the government at this point in time. One of the many motivations I have to run for Congress is so that when I am elected, whether it gets me killed or not, I will at least have the courage and sense of duty to force my way into these facilities and reveal to the world unequivocally what kind of atrocities we are committing. One of many reasons why I'm running is to reveal just how awful things really are and force the issue. Because we cannot bury our heads in the sand like good Germans. I'm not, at least. I am most certainly not going to simply go to work, pay my taxes, and not cause trouble. Definitely not going to do that. And as a congressman, I'll have way more authority and ability to do so. Let's see. And if you ask them what happened, you get a horrible answer that does nothing by this press secretary, and then, yeah, that. They committed a crime, the crime of not saying Merry Christmas or speaking Spanish, right? The scary part is that when you show the truth, they'll pull a George Orwell and say you've got TDS, and they reject what they see. Which is true. They might very well do that. But the difference is there will be enough people that see that truth, and it will spark a change. It's not going to spark any change whatsoever on those who already support this, obviously. But given that news networks are not accurately reporting on this and are refusing to even try, if their hand is forced, well then, I guess we'll see what we see. But you're right. George Orwell might very well end up being the case anyway. But I'm at least gonna try. Okay, we're only on the second video today, and it has been an hour and a half. So we've covered an astronomical fuck ton of ice today. And all these videos are just more in-depth of the things that we have covered about ICE today, like the flashbangs, the tear gas, the clashes, one more shot by federal agents, the journalist who tested ICE recruitment, so on and so forth. Oh, and the fact that we didn't cover this one yet. We may as well.
And following the killing of a U.S. citizen by an ICE agent last week, we're getting an update on a Minnesota lawsuit against the Department of Homeland Security. The first hearing just wrapped as almost 3,000 federal officers amass in Minnesota. The lawsuit is asking the court to stop the surge. Let's go live now to Jonah Kaplan, an investigative reporter with CBS News Minnesota. Jonah, what are state officials arguing here?
Yeah, Liz, great to be with you. There's really two key points here, and one of them is going to take everyone back to their social studies class, right? What is the 10th Amendment? That is the part of the Constitution that says whatever's not written here, whatever powers we don't spell out, they go to the state. So, city leaders are saying...
And to be clear, the 9th Amendment is the same language, but to the people. Uh-oh, did I mute it? Yeah. Okay, hold on. Because that one I know we have on. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. Oh, I'm sorry. To the states or to the people, that's the 10th. And then the 9th, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people, which means pretty much the same language, but with different context. All right? Just so we're very clear here. We need you to start a news network that employs only people who want the truth, not these assholes you see in the media. Buddy, if I had the money and the resources to do so, I would already did it. I promise you that. I promise you that. But agreed. Only if I don't get elected. Maybe I do fundraise enough during my campaign that it sparks a renaissance for my social media channels or something. Yeah, that would be fantastic.
Federal jurisdiction, leave us alone, we got this. But really the second part of that is, even if the federal government does have maybe probable cause, if you will, the state is saying, your probable cause, federal government, you're just coming after us for political reasons. You don't like us, Tim Walz is our governor, he ran against Donald Trump. You don't like us maybe because of what happened 5 years ago with the death of George Floyd and the unrest afterwards. So this is no reason for you to be coming here, surging
and
all of these.
This asshole on the left pushing people, and then this guy already has his pistol drawn and is starting to point it at people.
So this is no reason for you to be coming here, surging
literally
all of.
Did you see that?
So this is no reason for you to be coming here.
Is immediately pointing his weapon at people. This is not okay. This is open warfare from the state against the people. Minneapolis is showing up with their protests. They destroyed 3 ICE vehicles. Good. I mean, that's a great start. They need to make it untenable for these 3,000 ICE agents to remain there. Because again, this is ground zero. Whatever happens in Minneapolis, right? Because we thought Los Angeles was ground zero. We thought the other states were ground zero. But evidently Minneapolis is. This is the state where this administration wants to invade, wants to occupy, and wants to finally institute martial law. They're testing everything else that they can, and they are going all in Minneapolis. So, if Minneapolis can resist and expel ICE from their city, whether it's through protest or whatever else, then the administration has to go back to the drawing board and try it again at Los Angeles or New York or Chicago or some other place where it is possibly less likely to succeed. So, I really and truly hope Minneapolis comes out in full numbers. I mean, full general strike, and just starts forcing these people out. And they're not taking it. You're absolutely right. Midwesterners really don't take shit very well.
Surging all of these federal resources, wreaking havoc on our city, on our communities, and we wanted to stop.
They're pushing little old ladies,
so Jonah,
too,
where's
like
the case go from here?
Middle-aged women.
Well, the judge actually was very clear today, saying, I'm not about to make a judgment. City, Minneapolis, City of St. Paul, State of Minnesota, you've made your case. I'm giving now the federal government time to respond, and they deserve that time. So they're giving them until I think it's January 22nd. They're giving them a couple days now to come back with their response, and the judge is going to look at both and come to an agreement, or come to a decision.
So the judge is a fucking coward and not exercising their judicial purview, which is to be a check on the executive branch. Like, I cannot stress enough. These judges have the authority to stop Trump, and they have the means to issue arrest warrants against Trump and ICE and all these people. And time again, they don't. And that's the problem, which is why I said we effectively do not have a democracy nor a functioning constitution, because every time the Constitution is challenged, it loses. Every time Congress or a judge could step up and hold these pieces of garbage accountable, they don't. Every time their powers are threatened, they capitulate those powers. They surrender those powers. Something's got to give. And if it's not going to be the checks and balances, then it's going to be the people. And if we fail this test, it's not going to be fun for anybody. Another fun fact I learned is Donald is actually failing at the deportation numbers. Apparently Obama deported way more people than Trump has, with way less finding required. Well, that's the thing, because Obama deported them at the border, expelled them and repelled them at the border, whereas Trump is trying to terrorize people in their homes and in the workplace, which is obviously significantly harder.
And we're going to have to wait for that.
And earlier this week, Jonah, 6 federal prosecutors in Minnesota resigned over last week's shooting of Renee Good. What can you tell us about the pushback here?
Yeah, this is a really big deal, because if you think about it, why is the federal government focusing so much on Minnesota? It has to do with that fraud, the more than $1 billion fraud, all those social service programs that were targeted by these fraudsters, nearly 100 suspects. And the prosecutors who resigned yesterday, they were the ones who were actually driving the bus in terms of investigating the case.
So they're regurgitating the fraud, which was debunked as soon as it was made an accusation. It was some podcaster, right-wing racist piece of shit who claimed that there was fraud. It went viral, and now the news is regurgitating it as if it's fact. My God. Oh, I forgot about the Insurrection Act. I know we're still talking about ICE, and I said we were going to move forward, but this, again, is worth listening.
White House correspondent Karen Travers has more on the president's threat to invoke the Insurrection Act. Karen, what would it take and what would it mean for the president to invoke this?
Diane, we have heard the president threaten this before, but what this would mean is the president could deploy the military and he could federalize National Guard troops. And I think it's important to remember that this has not been used, the Insurrection Act, since 1992. That was in Los Angeles in response to the riots that happened after the Rodney King verdict. It hasn't been used without coordination with state officials since the 1960s, and that was in response to protecting civil rights protesters. matters. But when you look at some of the language from administration officials in recent days, they certainly seem to be teeing up the potential for the president to take this action. Stephen Miller, one of the president's top advisors, has said that this is the Minnesota lawmakers right now and officials there are encouraging violent insurrection. A top official at the Justice Department, Todd Blanche.
Which is absolutely insane considering they committed an insurrection on January 6th when he lost his first bid at a second term. So, again, every accusation is, what do they call it? A confession from this administration. And the fact that they keep regurgitating this rhetoric and that the news keeps lapping it up, I mean, there isn't a single news channel that is pushing back at this point. All of them, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, CNN, they are all regurgitating the Trump byline. Not a single one of them is pushing back. And that is extremely, extremely disturbing and stressful. Yeah, there's a huge problem with media organizations. Yeah, it's because they are all congealing into one big monopoly, and they are capitulating to the state on top of that.
Just last night in a post directed at the governor of Minnesota and the mayor of Minneapolis said, "I'm focused on stopping you from your terrorism by whatever means necessary," and said that wasn't a threat, it was a promise. Now, when you look back, the president...
Oh, yeah. This mayor who's like talking a big talk against the administration also said in a public statement that he doesn't want to abolish ICE. We'll stop you by any means necessary, but we're not going to dismantle the tool that you are using to literally invade an American city. Democrats are pathetic, spineless cowards who envision themselves as the next dictator once this one is gone. That's it. They're just waiting for their turn in the chair. And they want the fascism. They just don't want to be out loud supporting it. How the hell does $2,000 get you health insurance? This is part of the so-called great healthcare plan, giving them $2,000 annually. Yeah. Considering what, most healthcare premiums start at $700 a month.
In June, said that he could potentially use the Insurrection Act in response to some protests that were necessary, and said that wasn't a threat, it was a promise. Now, when you look back, the president in June said that he could potentially use the Insurrection Act in response to some protests that were aimed at the immigration crackdown at that point. And back in October, Diane, he also said he would consider using it as a way to get around state and local officials that were not cooperating with his administration on those same efforts. So is this a...
Which is, again, unconstitutional, undemocratic, blah, 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 right? Sam the Broken Record is one of the last lines of defense of journalistic integrity, and I'm not even a fucking journalist. I'm a politician actively running for Congress, and I have more journalistic integrity than, what, 99.99% of the journalist, news, media, independent included. Like, show me an indie news reporter, a small, just indie news, 400 subscribers, 4,000 subscribers, something like that. Just, is there anybody who is actually pushing back against this consistently and constantly on the right side? Because, like, isn't Hassan wrong on Venezuela? Like, and I know Hassan's your boy, but I saw you in chat again, so I had to step up with that. But, like, there is not nearly enough pushback against this administration and what they're doing and the rhetoric that they are using. Not nearly enough. And there are thousands of people who are in positions to speak back and speak out, and they aren't. There are 400 and... I think there's like 460,000 elected positions in the United States of America. Some 10,000 journalists and reporters that are the front-facing. So let's just add a 0 to that and say the people that support them in their reporting. So that's like 500,000 right there. Who have a actual platform with which to speak out and against this administration, and at least half of them are full-throatedly supporting it, and then the remaining half are either too cowardly or weak-willed to actively oppose it, or will verbally oppose it and then legislatively support it. Okay. I'm saying Hassan has had some bad takes before, right? So, but not nearly as bad as some others, like obviously the Young Turks themselves, or some of the questionable reporting that we got from Democracy Now! Today, right? And certainly not as many bad takes as, ABC News, right? Hassan's still good on the issues, right? But it's like Hassan, me, Democracy Now! Most of the time, Al Jazeera when it has nothing to do with Latin America, and beyond that, it's not even Al Jazeera English, really. So I'm just trying to say here, I'm just saying that there are not nearly as many vocal opposition that actually follow through with it as there needs to be. That's all I'm saying. And my 251 followers, mighty as they may be, are not enough to reach the 330 million Americans that need to hear it. To quote Zoran Mamdani, if you agree with me 9 out of 12 times, you should vote for me. If you agree with me 12 out of 12 times, see a psychiatrist. True. I mean, I'll give you that. I'm not looking for, echo chambers. I'm just saying, like, it's okay to be on the right side of history 100% of the time, right? And there aren't even that many people who are on the right side of history 80% of the time, let alone 90 or 100. And honestly, I've failed to be on the right side of history right away. 7 years ago, 8 years ago, I was a pro two-state solution guy because I didn't know what was going on between Israel and Palestine. And I'm white. And I just got out of the military, right? It took being told angrily, damn near violently, why that was stupid. And I was like, okay, you're absolutely right. Fuck Israel and dismantle the Zionist entity, right? So I've been on the wrong side of history. I'm not saying I've always been perfect. But what I am saying is when you are seeing fascism unfold before your very eyes and you aren't vehemently and aggressively pushing back against it, that's a fucking problem. A massive fucking problem. All right, Mehdi Hassan. I guess we need to start finding videos with him. Yeah, I mean, that's true. I'd say we do agree on a lot of things. I would say we agree on even more than that. I think what it is we differ on some of the methods, right? You have a stronger propensity for choppy than I do, despite wielding my cosplay prop. So there is that. Oh, speaking of cowardly, spineless Democrats.
Welcome back to The Takeout. House Democrats have introduced articles of impeachment against Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. While Democrats are criticizing her handling of the deadly Minnesota ICE shooting, the accusations focus on other aspects of Noem's tenure. That includes obstructing Congress. Democrats say lawmakers were denied entry into DHS facilities, for example. We are joined now by Democratic Congressman Mike Levin from California. Sir, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Are you one?
A Democrat from California is against impeaching Goebbels, Himmler. I don't really know which one she technically is, but a California Democrat, which is supposed to be the most liberal of the liberal, is against impeaching one of the head Nazis. Let's listen.
One of those Democrats on board with this push to impeach the Homeland Security Secretary?
No, Ed, and I will tell you this. I think that timing is really important, and there's no question that Kristi Noem has engaged in all sorts of activity.
Can you turn the fuck off, motherfucker? Goddamn. Timing. Optics. Bro, take the DCCC out of your ass, the billionaires out of your ass, and pay the fuck attention. The longer you allow fascism to reign, the harder it is to remove. And the less likely you will succeed, especially since they will turn on you directly eventually. You fucking ignorant child. I swear, all these Congress people are children. They have the IQ of children. Because clearly, they think they can look death in the face and tell it to wait, as if death gives a single solitary fuck about their opinion.
That need to be investigated. She needs to be held to account for all of it, as to.
And impeachment is being held accountable. And just because she's impeached doesn't mean you can't charge her with crimes after the fact through investigations and everything else. The impeachment would literally be evidence to support and corroborate further charges, you dumb motherfucker. I'm not even a lawyer, and I know that.
In the administration, but if impeachment were to move forward today, Jim Jordan, as chairman of the Judiciary Committee, with House Republicans in charge of the chamber, would run the process, and I think the process would be a mockery. It would be a joke, and it would
Okay. If that was the only reason why he said he was against it, is because it would be a joke and a mockery because Republicans would be running it, I'd be like, you know what? I can get behind that. I'm not going to impeach this bitch because fundamentally she's not going to get impeached because her allies would be the ones driving and steering the impeachment process. So instead, I would rather charge her accordingly. That's not what he said. He said, now is not the time. We should instead investigate her, instead do this, that, and the other, because, as an afterthought, Republicans would get in their way. The context fucking matters. The order in which he mentioned it matters. Cowardice. Here we go. Why the fuck is this mouse
There
not
is
working?
a jump in U.S. applications for the so-called Einstein visa, officially known as EB-1A. The visa is reserved for high achievers who can show extraordinary ability in their fields for employment. But a new CBS News investigation finds some companies marketing services to boost credentials for this visa may be committing fraud. CBS News confirmed data.
Capitalism never fails to impress, does it? Hey, you want to come to America, but you can't because the obvious reasons? Well, here's some real quick fix credentials for you so you can get on the Einstein visa. For the low price of $10,000 and your firstborn child, you too can get an Einstein visa. Unbelievable.
Journalist Julia Ingram worked on this investigation and joins us now. So good to have you here on the Daily Report. So what did your investigation find?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So we found that applications for this EB-1A visa have tripled over the last 4 years, in part because the backlog for it is shorter than for other skilled worker visas. Now, that's created a huge market for services to help people meet the criteria for this visa, which include being a member of a professional organization, writing scholarly papers, or winning awards. Now, we also found there's a range of services, and some of them could constitute fraud. So research brokers and consultants were selling scientific papers, vanity awards, or offering profile building services to customers willing to pay hundreds or thousands of dollars.
Wow.
As I literally said, for the low price of several $1,000s and your firstborn, because we know that there's human trafficking going on with this shit too, you too can be given the fake credentials and credibility to come to America via the Einstein. Like, that's just, that is so on the nose, though. You know what I mean? Like, that is so on the nose. But Democrats are the good guys. Well, I nearly disagreed the other day with Sam based on the economy, but we came full circle. That's true, because at the end of the day, I'm right. No, just kidding. No, Ronan is the right way. So, I mean, yeah, I do have the right answers. I don't have all the answers, but the answers I do have are the right way. All right, Democrats are the good guys, and when will be the time? Yeah, great question. His logic is, don't even bother trying, a true genius. The anti-fraud in chief did fraud with this to get his future wife in, which is exactly lost on nobody. Most countries have naturalization with 7 years. America has like 15 years. And actually, it wasn't even that bad years and years ago. It's only gotten that bad recently. Did they find the nude model in there? From over 4 years ago, did they find her file? Yeah, I guess not, right? Okay.
The FBI searched the Alexandria, Virginia home of a Washington Post reporter in connection to a classified documents investigation. The search was at the residence of Hannah Natanson, who covers the federal workforce. The investigation involves a Pentagon contractor accused of sharing classified information. CBS News Justice correspondent, not head of the Justice Department, he covers the...
Not yet.
Scott McFarlane.
I wouldn't hire anybody from MSM to be head of the Justice Department, whether they are correspondents or experts or whatever, because clearly we're seeing what happens when you hire personalities and put them in positions of power that can determine the fate and destiny of 330 million lives, if not 8 billion lives, because this administration wants to initiate World War III. Stop. Oh my. Sorry, I guess that's a bit of an overreaction. Sorry.
We all have ambitions.
This is kind of the nightmare scenario, I would think, for a lot of us who cover government agencies, who may come in contact with sensitive or classified information that people want to share. We know the reporter isn't the target of the investigation, but what more do we know about today's raid?
We know who the target is. It's Aurelio Perez, a man from Maryland who's charged with unlawful retention of defense information. He goes before a judge tomorrow at the federal court in Baltimore. The charging documents in his case indicate that he was a government contractor, has been a government contractor, and was looking at and holding some information that is classified he's not to have. We know this search was in relation to that investigation. The Department of Justice has called this search on this reporter's home righteous. The Secretary of Defense even championed it, saying it was a great thing to protect the war fighters of America. But what connection she has to Aurelio Perez and what Aurelio Perez was looking at is far from clear. We hope to hear some of that tomorrow when Perez faces a judge.
And in the past, usually what would happen here is the government would go to the judge and say, we'd like to talk to this reporter, or we'd like to get information from this reporter because we know this reporter was in touch with the person who's been arrested, or we think they were. Mm-hmm. A judge would then have to issue, there'd be that argument, and the Washington Post or whatever it was.
Okay. At the end of the day, whistleblowing is protected. It was, I think, restored after the Obama administration that whistleblowing was, in fact, protected. And that's what leaking classified military documents to the press is. It's whistleblowing. So we're going back to the Obama era of just targeting whistleblowers and throwing the entire book at them rather than, admitting wrongdoing or even addressing the wrongdoing. Which goes back to the point that this whole erosion of democracy and the imperial state has been ongoing for quite some time. Again, even Obama was hiding behind atrocities rather than addressing the crimes or admitting that there was fault. Holy crap, I thought Beto got a new gig and this guy talking is him. Yeah, not quite. But he says he doesn't want to be that administration. Yeah, of course not, right? Okay, so that's enough of that. All right, Iran.
Gonna get more on our top story.
We finally made it to foreign policy, folks.
Those protests in Iran. Fawaz Rizadi is an associate professor at the University of Tehran. He's joining us now. So thank you very much indeed for being with us. So we understand that the head of Iran's judicial system, Ghulam Hossein Mohseni Aji, is saying that trials must be held quickly and held in public for those burned or beheaded people. How confident can people in Iran be that these trials are going to be legitimate and not just an effort by the government to take retribution?
People were getting beheaded in Iran, and who are these people? Are they the protesters? One of the 2,000, or is it one of the 137 security forces? Because, yikes.
You know, we have had over 100 policemen casualties in the last couple of weeks. We have had ordinary citizens walking to a store that were killed. We have had store owners that refused to accept the call of Pahlavi to close the stores. He had called for general strikes. We had some store owners that did not want to close their shop. They were killed, their stores were burned. So what the head of Iran's judiciary said today is that we need to separate the people in three groups. One group is the people who actually committed murder. The second group are people who burned mosques, burned shops. And the third group are people who just participated. And I think Iran's judiciary is going to look at each case individually. All of these people will have attorneys. And one thing that I can tell you is that they want to make sure that the number of people who are killed is minimized as much as possible, because they don't want to give Trump an excuse to attack Iran again.
I wanted to ask you about that because of Donald Trump. Of course, Donald Trump has come out and said quite specifically that if Tehran carries out any executions, now he has not specified the nature of those, or the reasons behind those executions, he just said any executions, then the US will take action. How great a risk is Tehran facing at the moment if it does decide to carry out any executions?
You know, I think you have to take him seriously. He attacked Iran in June. We had over 1,200 civilian casualties at that time. Who knows, if he attacks Iran again, we may have 4,000, 5,000 casualties. We know that he doesn't respect human rights. He was working with Netanyahu to finish off a genocide in Gaza. They killed more than 70,000 people in Gaza. So we know they don't have any respect for human rights. Iranians don't believe him when he talks about human rights. They do believe him when he talks about attacking Iran because he has done it before. He wants to repeat the Libya experience in Iran. You remember what happened in 2011. They used this human rights violations issue to attack Libya. They actually armed gangs in Libya to shoot at police, and once you had a military confrontation with these people, then they
So I'm going to interrupt you because I do understand the kind of context that you're attempting to give us there. And I do take you, I accept that you are trying to put that into that context. I do want to, however, ask you that about the fact that the government in Tehran, elements of the government of Tehran, have immediately pointed the finger at the US and, to an extent, Israel as well, as being those who have been fomenting these protests. Given the number of people that we have been seeing on the streets before there was, of course, the communication shutdown in Iran, is it really acceptable, do you think? Do people understand or accept the fact that these protests were actually driven by the US and Israel, or is it not a clearer indication that there is a fundamental unhappiness and unease with the government of Iran and the way that they're managing the economy. And part of a longer-term dissatisfaction with the...
Son of a bitch. I forgot that I was muted. All right. Well, wouldn't be a stream if I didn't mute myself and go on a rant, right? So, anywho, we'll just, You know what? No, I'm gonna replay that rant. Hey, I'm gonna interrupt you for explaining exactly how America engages in regime change. And I'm going to ask you instead, do you think the regime change that we are seeing unfold in front of us has absolutely nothing to do with U.S. influence, the sanctions, Mossad, the CIA, stirring and fomenting unrest, and that it's just a natural result of economic conditions that the government itself allowed to happen and civilian unrest against that? Like, dude, you interrupted him as he was explaining how Obama disrupted the Libyan government and economy, which directly led to civilian unrest and protesters. And then you ask him, do you think that what's happening in Iran, in this tiny little bubble of economic collapse, is as a direct result of protesters and whatever else and their aggression against their government, when you completely omit the fact that this had everything to do with the U.S. sanctions?
Government.
You know, before Iranian government officials pointed to the presence of Mossad in these riots, it was Mike Pompeo, the former CIA director, that sent them New Year.
In your face, motherfucker! You tried interrupting U.S. imperialism, and he said, no, it's the CIA.
Greetings, and pointed to the presence of Mossad in these riots. It was Mike Pompeo, the former CIA director, that sent them New Year greetings. And the quote is there. He hasn't deleted the Twitter message. He says that they are walking alongside protesters. Gallant, the former Israeli defense minister, a couple of days ago repeated the same thing. Jerusalem Post, numerous Israeli media outlets have been bragging about the fact that Mossad is very much present in these protests. And I think since they want to increase the number of dead, I think Mossad agents are actually shooting both sides at the same time. So this is not something that only Iranian government officials have said, and they realize that they're dealing with two nuclear weapon states. They realize that they just went through a war with the other side, so they want to be careful in terms of making sure that Trump doesn't have an excuse to attack Iran again.
What is that?
Get fucked, because that is the correct answer. That is a 100% A+ correct answer.
We appreciate you being with us on Al Jazeera. Thank you very much indeed.
And immediately ends the interview. Of course he does. Fucking bullshit.
For Jewel Hansen, Greenland is a place of abundance and liberty. He's been fishing among the towering icebergs of Ilulissat in the west of the island for 14 years.
I love Greenland because when I'm fishing, we have a big freedom to work for ourselves.
Joel is half Inuit, half Danish, and he doesn't want Donald Trump changing him or anything else here.
I will not be American. I have seen Alaska and Inuits, how hard they living. It's maybe better be Danish, I think.
So you don't think America treats native people well?
No, no. I'm terrified to be American.
But Greenland's abundance.
Which just goes to show, no, Greenland do not want to be Americans. Greenland would not be better off as America, especially not under this administration. And the fact that there is fear of America rather than respect and awe or even respect of America globally at this time
is a big part of why the US president says he wants this territory, whether its people like it or not. So this is how many Greenlanders feed themselves and earn a living, as they always have, fishing and hunting the icy coastal waters. But deep inland, there's a much greater source of wealth, and that's one of the things Donald Trump has his eyes on. And because the island is so remote and inhospitable, it's wealth that is largely untapped. Now, beneath Greenland, there are rich deposits of things like zinc, iron, uranium, and graphite. And some of these deposits are the much sought after rare earth elements. When processed, these have unique magnetic and electrochemical properties, and they're used in lots of modern tech like wind turbines, electric vehicles, smartphones, and importantly, missile systems and fighter jets. Now, because China controls most of the world's current supply of rare earth elements, Donald Trump sees Greenland's resources as vital to US security. Extracting them profitably, though.
I'm willing to bet that that's more Stephen Miller or Marco Rubio that sees that as vital to U.S. security. Also, if China already controls the majority of rare earth metals, how on earth did we build our weapon systems in the first place? From China. So, like, all China had to do this entire time was cut off America, and we wouldn't have a military in the first place. Like, does this not make sense now? And of course, fine, we're going to invade Greenland for rare earth metals. That's not going to make anything any better, because guess what? As soon as we conquer Greenland, we spark World War III, which means we're not even going to have the opportunity to build the industry and infrastructure necessary to extract these minerals from Greenland in the first place. Never mind the fact that it is going to have massive, severely destructive ramifications to our ecosystem, and yes, global warming, because I don't know if you've noticed, Greenland is mostly fucking ice, and if you start destroying that ice, it causes it to melt, causing ocean levels to rise and the atmosphere to heat, which is already impacting the climate through these polar vortex bubbles that keep hitting North America in the middle of winter, giving us springtime and sub-Saharan zero weather as well. So the ramifications of taking Greenland are not just geopolitical, it's also environmental. Nor do we have the means to rapidly step up and institute these industries, as we are seeing with Venezuela. Oil magnates don't even want to invest in Venezuela because it wouldn't happen quickly enough for a return on investment. So where do you think that return on investment is going to be in Greenland? Where? I'm really legitimately asking. This is how stupid this administration is. They're going to take Greenland. They're going to trigger Article 5 of NATO. World War III is going to start. And we're still not going to have those rare earth metals because it would take at least a decade of building the infrastructure. And while we're building the infrastructure, we are going to be boiling alive on this planet. Everybody, not just America, everybody. Remember that part of the Pokemon cartoon when Team Rocket froze a volcano and it caused catastrophe? This is just like it. You are 100% correct.
Here's another matter. Glaciers, the ice sheet, few roads. Greenland has only 2 operating mines for a reason. To Jewel, this is still a path to future independence, though.
We have a lot of minerals in Greenland, so we can be a nation if we want. We don't need money from Trump.
But the US president is yet to show he'll take no for an answer. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera.
There it is. There it is.
Welcome back.
This one right here, folks. European military personnel arrive in Greenland as Trump says U.S. needs island.
Soldiers from NATO countries have begun arriving in Greenland, and more military flights and ships are expected in the coming days. This all comes after Denmark says soldiers from several countries will take it in turns to have a military presence in Greenland. High-level talks at the White House failed to reach an agreement about the future of the island, which President Trump says the US needs for national security reasons. Our Europe editor Katya Adler reports.
With the fate of their island hanging in the balance, Greenlanders, wherever they were on their icy island, were glued to the headlines. In the capital Nuuk, when we asked, people had a defiant message for President Trump.
We are the owners of this land, and we should run it ourselves.
We don't want to be a part of US, and they should leave us alone.
Meanwhile, 2,000 miles away in Washington, their foreign minister and her Danish counterpart prepared for a closed-door meeting in the White House with the US Vice President and Secretary of State. The first substantial talks between the 3 parties since President Trump began insisting Greenland had to be his during his first term in office.
Hold up. Trump brought this up in his first term? I wasn't streaming back then, and I think I had a lot of other things going on during his first term, but, like, has this been a pet project then of his? Like, I want Greenland. I really need Greenland. Are you kidding me?
An intention he doubled down on again before and after talks.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Imperialism is great. And to say no, he says you're going to do it anyway, that is absolutely. He kept it very quiet, to be honest. I don't think you were the only one blind to it. Right, and if Anna didn't hear about it, then I find that hard to believe that he wanted Greenland in the first term. Because this took literally everybody by surprise. So maybe the BBC is just hallucinating information.
We're going to see what happens with Greenland. We need Greenland for national security, so we're going to see what happens. And we need it for national security.
They don't want to be American, as these protesters outside the US Embassy in Copenhagen pointed out. Their worst-case scenario was averted. There was no my way or the highway message from the Trump administration. Instead, a pledge to set up a working group, postponing confrontation to another day.
Ideas that would not respect territorial integrity of the Kingdom of Denmark and the right of self-determination of the Greenlandic people are, of course, totally unacceptable. And we therefore still have a fundamental disagreement.
They do. Donald Trump insists he has to take this island, otherwise Russia and China will. Around 10...
Which, again, Europe has been fear-mongering Russia for nearly a decade now because of Russia-Ukraine. And now Trump is like, haha, I got you with it because you've been saying Russia, Russia, Russia. I'm going to say Russia, 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 and throw in China because I have a personal vendetta against China. And just say that they're trying to take Greenland. And no reporting has ever stated in any capacity that China or Russia had any designs on Greenland in the first place, whether economically, militarily, or strategically. It just never has come up. And yet now, that's the only talking point that is coming out of this administration's mouth. Would it be the first time BBC got stuff wrong? No kidding. Russia can't take Ukraine. Yeah, so they're going to take Greenland. Exactly. From all of NATO, no less. Since becoming part of the U.S. means swearing off their citizenship to join U.S. citizenship, and they don't want to do that, he shouldn't put them in a "you'll do it or I will imprison you." And that's the thing. That's what he's doing. It's like we're going to take Greenland whether you like it or not. We're willing to talk about it so that we can create war plans to invade. And Europe seems to be keen on that, which is why they have sent personnel there.
European allies in NATO, including the UK, France and Germany, are scrambling to soon send troops and defence capabilities here. The numbers are unlikely to be dramatic, but the message to the US is meant to be clear. NATO is here to help. No need to take unilateral action and further risk transatlantic relations.
Let's get you to the White House now. Nancy Cordes is following the developing situation between the US, Denmark and Greenland. Nancy, always good to see you. Good morning. What, if anything, was clarified at yesterday's meeting, and what happens now?
Well, what the Danes were hoping would be clarified, Errol, was that the U.S. had no further plans to try to invade Greenland, to buy Greenland, or take it over in any other way. But they did not get those assurances from Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Instead, what they say they got was a commitment to continue to talk, to continue to work together, even though they still have big concerns based on what the president has been saying about taking Greenland the easy way or the hard way. Take a listen to the Danish foreign minister after the meeting yesterday describing what happens next.
We have decided to form a high-level working group to explore if we can find a common way forward. The group, in our view, should focus on how to address the American security concerns, while at the same time respecting the red lines of the Kingdom of Denmark.
Those red lines are, of course, maintaining their territorial integrity. Greenland has been a territory of Denmark since the 1800s. President Trump has been making the case, Errol, that the Danes are leaving Greenland vulnerable to threats from China and Russia in the Arctic. The Danes rejected that yesterday, but they did say that they are stepping up their military exercises in Greenland. And interestingly, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, announced last night that he is going to be contributing troops to that mission in solidarity.
Interesting. All right, Nancy Cordes with the latest for us at...
Oh, that was the whole byline, the 2 seconds that France was going to be part of the troops as well in solidarity. It's crazy how Europe will unite to protect its own interests and that of Israel. But when it's actually humanitarian crises, they're nowhere to be found. Interesting, right? Very interesting.
After years of violence, exile and denial, the Rohingya's story is finally being told before judges at the International Court of Justice. Survivors are also here to witness the Gambia argue that genocide was perpetrated against their people, while Myanmar will argue members of the minority Muslim community were cleared from their homes to enforce security.
It is about real people.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to expel this powerless minority group from their homes for national security. Does that sound familiar?
Real stories and real group of human beings, the Rohingya of Myanmar. They have been targeted for destruction.
In August 2017, a military offensive in Rakhine State forced more than 740,000 Rohingya to flee to neighbouring Bangladesh. They reported mass killings, rape and other abuses. 2 years later, the Gambia, though not an injured party, filed a case at the ICJ accusing Myanmar of genocide. In 2020, the court ordered Myanmar to take all measures within its power to prevent acts that could amount to genocide. Since then, several other countries have joined the case. Outside of the court, some of the survivors looking for resolution and a way to return home.
In Myanmar, the military has committed widespread atrocities and abuses. They raped and killed our mothers and sisters, killed and raped our children, and threw them into the fire. They burned our homes and looted our belongings. They carried out genocide against us, forcing us to flee to Bangladesh. And today, we're living in refugee camps.
In a rare move, the court judges will hear from some of those survivors in closed-door sessions.
Why would hearing from the survivors of a genocide be a rare move? shouldn't that be the default move, the consistent move, the most common and obvious move? Again, why do we have the United Nations? Why do we have the International Criminal Courts if all they ever do is the bare fucking minimum? If they act at all. And they're powerless to act because there are countries who can stop them with just one vote. One country with one vote can stop all of the United Nations activities from moving forward. So, like, what? I really don't understand the point. That doesn't mean dismantle the United Nations and NATO and all that, because these institutions have failed us. It means we need to bolster them or reorganize and figure something else out. You're right. There's only two options: make it work or find something that will. It's the same thing with what's happening in our country. If the Constitution isn't enough to stop a person like Trump, then we need to fix the Constitution or do something better. Because we cannot have this happen every 250 years. Or every, well, let's see, Nixon was the 70s, right? So, every 50 years? So, I'm just throwing that out there.
To rule on genocide, they'll have to be convinced of two things. First, that atrocities happened. And second, that there was specific intent to destroy the Rohingya as a group. Now, that is a very high legal bar, and one that has derailed previous cases.
Lawyers say this...
Oh, the very high legal bar of the widely publicly recorded and streamed genocide that is being not, well, it's not being well reported, but it is, what is being reported is very clearly genocide. It's not enough evidence, though. And that just goes back to the point where, like, there clearly needs to be a lower threshold then. Like, if you can't see genocide happening with your own eyes and be able to legally prove that it's genocide, then the legal stipulations for genocide needs to be adjusted. Period.
This case also holds a wider significance.
The decision that the court will make on this case will also impact all cases on genocide before the International Court of Justice. We expect a decision before the end of the year. We expect Myanmar to be found liable for genocide.
Those other cases include the one brought against Israel for its war on Gaza. For the Rohingya, the judge's verdict could bring them a step closer to reclaiming their sense of humanity.
And again, how the fuck is it not every single agency on Earth that has anything to do with declaring something a genocide has said what Israel did in the Gaza Strip is in fact genocide? And the ICJ is like, well, I mean, according to the definition of genocide, it's not really a genocide unless it occurred in the French province of genocide. So I don't know what to tell you. Unfucking believable. I'm beginning to really hate all of our institutions, like the international ones, our national ones, our state and our local ones, because clearly the only thing they seem to be capable of doing is harming the poor and the disenfranchised, while aiding and abetting the actual criminals and corrupt pieces of garbage that are committing these crimes. Any crimes, for that matter. So maybe we do need a clean slate reset on global international society, because what we're seeing in modern times is not it. You're not going to reform what's happening. You need to fix it. Well, I guess fixing is reform, right? There isn't a moderate position of incrementalism, right? There is remove these people from power and authority and from their wealth, execute them, send a very strong message, pass legislation that installs brakes and safety mechanisms that trigger automatically if they are ever tested again in the future. That's how you stop this shit from happening. But instead, this. And then, of course, from Al Jazeera, Venezuela's leadership in limbo after U.S. abduction of Maduro. It's not in limbo. It's regime change. It's abduction of a sovereign head of state. And it's the occupation of a head of state, or of a sovereign state.
Maria Corina Machado won the Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts to promote human rights and democracy. She dedicated it to the people of Venezuela.
Is this really a fluff piece for this fascist piece of shit? Who won the prize, which has completely diluted its meaning, and is trying her hardest to lick the boot of Trump? Seriously? I'm guessing you didn't get to screen this video thoroughly because the first 11 seconds are atrocious.
But for many inside the country, political debates can sometimes feel distant from daily concerns like work, security, and stability.
All politicians are cut from the same cloth. What's needed here is someone who knows how to lead and manage a country. If a person doesn't know how to manage a company or a country, it will go bankrupt. And it doesn't.
If you can't manage a company or a country, it'll go bankrupt. So you're looking to the person who is looking to the person who has 6 bankruptcies and is currently bankrupting their country? Buddy, come on now.
It doesn't matter whether they're from the opposition or another party.
As Machado meets President Donald Trump at the White House, many see it as an opportunity for her to make her case that she is the future leader of Venezuela. Trump, for now, has thrown his support behind interim President Delcy Rodriguez. Machado and Rodriguez are longtime political enemies. Staying in Trump's good grace is key to their political survival.
In my view, she lost respect here in Venezuela, in the sense that she promised and promised and never delivered. That's my opinion. And having someone like that, it's better to be adrift.
Others say that opposition leadership today feels fragmented and that no single figure fully represents the country's diverse realities.
Of course, she's still an opposition leader. She is a leader. That woman mobilized people here, and if she were leading from the front, she would continue to mobilize people. But yes, she is a leader.
While Venezuela's institutional leadership has shifted with the ouster of Nicolás Maduro, many Venezuelans say their focus remains on practical change rather than political titles.
The international spotlight is both on Machado and Rodriguez and how they play their role on the global stage. How well they do will determine who will be Venezuela's next leader. Nori Soto, Al Jazeera, Caracas.
Who is willing to dance to the empire's tune the most is going to be the leader of Venezuela. And then they focused a majority of this entire clip on the person that is the biggest bootlicker of them all. Al Jazeera, I don't think we should rely on Al Jazeera for Latin American news at all. Maybe they're the only ones that had some, because that could very well be the case. But, like, this is insane. This was insane to listen to. Also, pitting women against each other. Yep. To undermine each other and to destroy one another. That's, again, a very common abuser tactic of men. Of abuser men, right? Oh, this is what made world news.
And Charlie, you know, I want
to... U.S. news. We seized another oil tanker. Which I don't think we need to actually read or listen to it. It's just, once again, pirating in the Caribbean.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman. The conservative majority Supreme Court signaled Tuesday it'll rule to uphold state laws in Idaho and West Virginia that ban transgender girls from participating in school sports. 2 transgender girls, one in Idaho, the other in West Virginia, wanted to be part of their school's track teams, but state laws prevented them from participating. Soon after taking office, President Trump signed an executive order to direct federal agencies to withdraw funding from schools that allow transgender youth to compete in women's sports. This is ACLU attorney Chase Strangio.
In this moment, in so many halls of power, it feels like people are debating whether or not transgender people exist. whether or not we deserve protections under our Constitution and our civil rights statutes. And today in the Supreme Court, we were able to remind the 9 justices that we do exist, that we deserve protections just like everybody else, and that there has been a history of discrimination against us that warrants the court to take a closer look at the type of government targeting that we've seen over and over again from states and now from the federal government. Thank you.
We're joined now by Karen Lowy, Senior Counsel and Director of...
It is infuriating how easy it is to divide people, and that division, that divisive technique has succeeded since societies formed thousands of years ago. They are a threat. They are unnatural. Burn them. They are a threat. They are unnatural. Stone them. They are a threat. They are unnatural. They are risking our safety and our security. Expel them from the city or from the village. It has literally not changed in thousands of years. Absolutely disgusting. He has a weird voice, just like many men, but he looks very much like a man. Imagine wanting that guy to use the women's bathroom. Again, it's about discrimination. It's just straight up control and discrimination of those who do not have power to defend themselves due to their minority status. And of course, the Supreme Court is going to support this because they have already eroded every other element of the Constitution. Why keep the 14th Amendment? Honestly, if this administration starts sprinkling the idea of returning slaves, like actual slaves, literal slave trade in America, I wouldn't even be surprised at this point. We're gonna turn these immigrants into workers without pay for being here illegally. Got a few more minutes left here.
Republicans in the Senate have killed a resolution that would have put limits on President Trump's ability to take action in
Senate Republicans kill the war powers effort. Senators in Congress undermine their own constitutional obligations and authorities that are explicitly theirs and give it to the president. Or at least don't interfere. It's kind of hard to have a democracy and a constitution if you're just going to ignore both. You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't work that way. But let's have a more in-depth.
Venezuela. 5 Republicans had broken rank last week to advance a war powers measure. Many concerned about the possibility President Trump would order troops on the ground in Venezuela. One of those senators, Missouri's Josh Hawley, spoke before the vote about what changed his mind.
I've had multiple very substantive discussions on this issue over the last 5 days. And, what the administration told me all the time was, they said, we think that this ties our hands. And I said, my concern is ground troops in Venezuela without congressional authorization. And they said, well, we don't want to do that.
CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole.
So I asked, well, I guess he didn't have a Southern dialect. So I asked the administration if they were going to send troops into Venezuela, and they told me no, so I'm not going to curb their power. The same administration that lied about every single thing that they said that they weren't going to do and then turned around and did anyway, that all but confirms we're going to occupy Venezuela with military. And what, subjugate the Venezuelan people? And then what, start murdering the Venezuelan people? Like, again, if we don't kick off World War III by invading Greenland, it's going to be because we attacked Iran or it's because we are occupying Venezuela. Unfucking believable. They also investigated themselves and found that they did nothing wrong. Exactly. The Trump White House has said repeatedly that they have not issued any unlawful orders, that every order that was issued was lawful because it came from the White House. Oh my God, Becky. Oh my God. Okay. Wow.
Global temperatures in 2025 were slightly lower than 2024, but that still makes it the third hottest year on record across the globe. A study by the Met Office and European climate scientists also found it was the third year in a row in which temperatures reached more than 1.4 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Dr. Samantha Burgess is the Deputy Director of the Copernicus Climate Change Service. She told me what this all means for the planet.
All right. I'm gonna take a stab at this. There is a temperature threshold that can rise globally, but not exceed every year. There is a specific temperature. And if we exceed that temperature, we start to completely destabilize the entire geology, the entire planetary ecosystem of climate. All of it, the whole thing. If globally the temperatures rise by a set amount. And if it stays elevated for years, those effects, instead of being anomalies, become permanent and irreversible. Because contrary to popular belief, we do not have the technology to terraform any planet, let alone Mars, and most certainly not a complex planet like Earth. So, let's see if I'm right.
Yeah, so the key findings from this year's report was that 2025 was the third warmest year on record after 24 and 2023. The global temperature anomaly was 1.47 degrees above the pre-industrial average, which is an average of the global climate before significant human impact on the climate from burning fossil fuels. And 2025 marks 3 years above 1.5 degrees. And this is important as we're now 10 years on from the Paris Agreement, where almost every nation committed to lower global warming to well below 2 degrees and ideally below 1.5 degrees.
The whole question of tackling climate change has become very politicized and quite polarized, hasn't it? Do you think the globe has slowed down on trying to mitigate this?
I think there's a lot of political rhetoric which is very present in the media, but the reality is the science.
So I did look up, Sasha is only at 365. Hey, so we're not doing that bad compared to, you know, some of these 1.2 million followers and only 400 viewers. I mean, I feel like we're doing pretty good in terms of percentage. Comparable percentages. Maria Corina Machado came to the White House to suck up to Trump in person. That was that. Yeah, that was true. It's hard to take watching him seriously because of that time he said he wanted to shield his child from stuff the woke crowd wants you to know. And she's famous enough for even me to know who she is, right? So, yeah. And then back to the topic at hand. I was not listening, unfortunately. So let's keep playing.
Science is unequivocal. The evidence is incredibly clear. Today, 8 independent data sets have all come out and said the same thing, that 2025 was the second or third warmest year on record. We know what to do. We know it's our fault. And there are success stories as well where we see the transition to renewable energy and emissions reductions, but we just need to do more of it.
I've been caught up in a forest.
Okay. So climate change is happening. It's being politicized. we can do something about it, but we have to do it collectively as a global species, and nobody seems to be inclined to do so. Oh, goodness. Yeah, why not? Why not? Let's just get really angry about the second phase of
the White House
Gaza's,
says it's now moving on to the next phase
erasure.
of the Gaza peace plan. Yesterday, President Donald Trump's special envoy said the second phase of President Trump's 20-point move would move from the initial ceasefire toward establishing a new technocratic government. For more on this, we're joined now by CBS News.
The fact that they coined technocratic government and are using it as if that's not one of the most disturbing things to ever be uttered out of anybody's mouth, as if it's normal. Again, a technocratic government. You want a government ran by somebody like Elon Musk. Do you not hear yourself? Do you not hear yourself? You want Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Peter Thiel, Mark Zuckerberg. You want them, people like them, to unilaterally govern a people that have been pushed to the brink of extinction. And that's not raising any alarms with these people or anyone else. It's like using the word apartheid. Oh, they're just doing apartheid policies. Apartheid, or no, I'm sorry, that wasn't right. It's not austerity measures, that's right. It's like, buddy, do you know what austerity is? We know what austerity is. Austerity measures have always failed and have always caused civil unrest and division and a massive wealth gap between the rich and the poor. That's why austerity measures are universally hated and tossed down in democratic governments. And yet the reporting is, oh yeah, Malaya is trying to implement austerity measures. Marcon is trying to implement austerity measures. Governor of wherever is trying to implement austerity measures. Like, are you fucking serious? Right, fuck the working class. And technocratic is fuck the working class in the most obscene ways imaginable. With fancy gadgets involved.
Middle East reporter Courtney Keeley. Courtney, so much to walk through here. I mean, we heard from what the White House is saying, but how is Israel and Hamas responding?
Separately. Hamas had meetings with Palestinian factions in Cairo, and their intention is getting the Rafah border crossing, the Gaza border with Egypt open and getting more aid in. But Hamas also said, a spokesman said, that they're willing to start disarmament. So we've got determination by the U.S. government and skepticism by the Israelis. So the U.S. government has troops not in Gaza, and they will not go into Gaza, but they have a group of more advisory roles just north of Gaza. Now, what will happen next week is President Trump will announce the Board of Peace, the members at Davos. He's going to be the chairman. Jared Kushner will be involved.
Jared Kushner is going to be part of the technocratic government. The same Jared Kushner who has $2 billion worth of trade deals with Saudi Arabia and was involved with other state-sanctioned negotiation activities. He's going to be part of the technocratic board over the Gaza Strip.
Witkoff will be involved. Tony Blair will not have his senior position as much as they thought in the beginning. It will be held by this man who's a diplomat from Bulgaria, Nikolai Mladenov.
All right, so Courtney, break down what is to be expected in phase two.
The one thing the Israelis want more than anything is the return of the remains of a top officer from the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, Ron Gvili. His mother said Israel will not...
Good night, pop culture. I am not far behind you. I am sick of hearing about Hamas. They're not even a functioning organization at this point. Exactly. And they weren't to begin with. Let's be very clear. They weren't a functioning organization to begin with, because whether we're talking about the freedom fighters or the governing body, they were all subject to Israel's violence and oppression with absolute impunity. The fact that Hamas got any shots off on Israel is nothing but a small miracle, right? It's like a child throwing a stone at a tank. And yet the response of the tank is to blow up the child at point blank.
Find peace until he's returned. So that's absolutely the most imperative thing.
Why are they still holding them?
It's unclear if they can find him. Now, is Hamas trying to use this as a bargaining chip, or they truly can't dig through the rubble like they're
What the fuck? The first question is, why are they trying to withhold this? It's like, well, we can't find him. But is it because they really can't find him, or they're trying to use it as a negotiating chip? Like, even CBS Morning News, which is supposed to be feel-good, very lighthearted news, even these people are malicious scum that are trying to convey an image and story that somehow Palestinians, the victims of genocide, Hamas, the only resistance force available to stand against the genocide, are somehow the bad guys. And why can't they find this corpse? Because Israel has carpet bombed Palestine so thoroughly that it is completely rubble. But we don't talk about that, do we? Because that might make Israel and Zionism look bad. Right. Exactly, Anna.
Sources tell CBS News the U.S. quietly purchased a device in late 2024 that may be connected to the mysterious condition known as Havana syndrome. We're told the U.S. government is now testing that portable backpack-sized device that emits pulsed radio frequency energy. More than 1,500 American officials have reported symptoms, including severe headaches, nausea, and ringing in the ears since 2016. There
Also known as anomalous health incidents, is a disputed medical condition. Starting in 2016 in about a dozen overseas locations, U.S. and Canadian government officials and their families reported symptoms associated with a perceived localized loud sound. The symptoms lasted for months and included disabling cognitive problems, balance, dizziness, insomnia, and headaches. Havana syndrome is not officially recognized as a disease by the medical community. A number of agencies and so on and so forth. Official investigations have provided various theories, but there is no consensus. Theories include directed energy weapons, psychological and social causes, toxic chemicals, but no cause has been established. And now the Pentagon has found this device, which through radio waves, which we already know, RF radiation is a thing. Pulsing RF radiation can 100% mess with our brains and our bodies because it's just waves in there. And again, radiation. And now they're going to invest money, time, and resources into probably figuring out how this thing works and then weaponizing it further. So remember how I said that the only inevitable conclusion of what ICE has been doing from the very beginning up until what it's doing into Minneapolis in months, weeks, or years down the road? There it is. ICE is going to start doing this. Or, if not ICE, the government, generally speaking. But there are going to be attacks against citizens, civilians generally, that are going to have Havana syndrome. Mark my words, it's going to happen in Democratic-aligned cities and Democratic states. And we're going to have no idea what the cause was or any understanding of what it is. It's just this brand new thing. And then the government is going to spew whatever filth it's going to spew. And we're going to be able to look back to this moment and be like, ah, it's the Havana Syndrome. The tool that the Pentagon got to weaponize, to use against Americans and people within our borders. Wonderful. I do know what to say, but
There have been multiple investigations into the origins of Havana Syndrome, but nothing conclusive has been released so far. CBS News reporter Olivia Gazis joins us now. Olivia, what exactly is it that the U.S. obtained and how?
Sure. Well, 3 sources who've been briefed on this highly secretive acquisition, Lindsay, tell CBS News that the device was purchased by a unit inside the Department of Homeland Security using Pentagon funding upwards of 8 figures, which means multiple millions of dollars. It is relatively small, as you said, and according to what we know, it was a transaction that one person described as Russia connected. It's got Russian components inside of it, and it's Russia and connected. That doesn't mean that we bought it from the Kremlin. More likely, it means a black market, an arms dealer, not an official state-to-state transaction. The testing of this device, which, as you mentioned, was bought in 2020.
The amount of mental gymnastics that everybody is going through saying, oh, it's not Russian, it's not from the Kremlin, it just has Russian parts and was probably created by the KGB.
24 in the final weeks of the Biden administration has been going on for at least a year, and we're told that congressional oversight committees have been briefed on what these investigators have found. Now, why does this matter? For victims, it's evidence that, 1, a device exists, and it may be capable of producing those kinds of really troubling neurological effects that they've been experiencing. That said, we do not know that it's been conclusively proven that this device causes these cases or is linked to any specific case. But there is a broader question about proliferation here. If the U.S. was able to acquire one of these devices, it raises the possibility that other potentially hostile countries may be able to get their hands on one too, if they haven't already, which poses real risks to U.S. officials overseas.
Or that it's weaponized and turned against our own population, as every other thing has been weaponized and wielded against our population when it protests the state acting out of accordance of the Constitution and the rule of law. All right. We have time for one more video, and it's the only video that's feel good. Anna, we need to do a lot more feel good. We need like 30 minutes of content worth of feel good, right? If it's 5 minutes, I can probably stretch it to 10 minutes by talking about it, right? We need more feel good content, okay? Because this one video is not gonna cut it.
Swiping through social media, you'll find some of the newest trends this year are age-old hobbies. I really want to get into knitting. Crafting, puzzles, and baking, delighting a whole new generation. I've recently discovered Mahjong. The so-called grandma hobbies or analog activities are drawing young people away from doom.
So, we got tarot on the one side, we got knitting on the other. I don't know what the one on the right is. And Mahjong, which is a game invented in China that has been, around for thousands of years? Like, okay.
Scrolling. I packed my needlepoint bag to take over to my grandparents. Google searches for needlepoint reaching new highs in recent weeks. My current work in progress. While WIP, or Work in Progress Wednesday, now has more than 80,000 videos of crafters showing off their projects on TikTok.
Heard you want to start needlepointing, you just don't know where to begin.
It's part of 28-year-old Brooke Michio's New Year's resolution.
I realized all of the activities that I were doing.
For the record, my mom did cross-stitching or needlepoint for years and years, and I don't know why she stopped doing that hobby, but regardless, yeah, that's stuff my mom used to do.
We're either on a computer, on the phone, like some sort of screen involved. And this is something that is completely separate from that.
Dude, you know what actually just rips in your 30s, dude? Is like birds, dude.
Bird watching also taking.
Bruh, you know it's fucking awesome in your 30s? Bird watching, bro. You just. And look at the birds, and they have the wings and the colors, bro. And then they go tweet, tweet, tweet. It's the best, bro. Sure, why not?
taking flight among young people.
Why do you think there's this embrace?
Oh, the
Watching also taking flight among young people.
the weird apparatus that she created was for bird watching. Okay, imagine that. My grandma tried to teach me how to crochet, but I was 5 and terrible at it. Yeah, well, you know.
Why do you think there's this embrace of analog activities?
I think we're just going back to the basics. It feels like it's something that kind of unites us across multi-generations.
Stitching new bonds with timeless hobbies. Emily Ikeda, NBC News.
Okay. So grandma hobbies are making a comeback. Okay. Now, to be fair, I am a fan of puzzling. I actually enjoy puzzles. Some puzzles more than others, let's be clear. I made a Neuschwanstein castle puzzle with my mom, and I wanted to blow my brains out, and so did my mom. That was because it was like 3,000 pieces, and there were only 3 main color groups. White and, well, actually 2. White and green. And really, it was like light green and dark green, and they were extremely difficult to differentiate, and it was awful. There is no other way to describe. You know those puzzles that are like 1,000 pieces and they're literally just all white, but they make a shape, whether it's a ball or a square or whatever? I would rather do that. I would rather do that than do Neuschwanstein, because at least I know that these 1,000 pieces are going to make a ball, and I can start somewhere, right? And even though every single last one of them are white, at least I know I'm getting into this kind of fuckery, right? But the castle is so misleading. It's like, oh, it's a beautiful picture. I can easily do that. It would be like if, well, I was going to say maybe this background if this was a puzzle, but no, there's too much uniqueness in it. Point being, puzzling is fun, but not that one. I'm also not a big fan of crosswords, but I do like word searches. Sudoku, I think, is actually relatively new and modern, but I'm a huge fan of Sudoku. I do like playing chess. I'm good at chess, but I'm not great at chess, right? Like, if I was rated at chess, I would be whatever mediocre is. Whatever that rating is, this guy. I am not a master. I am not a grandmaster. I'm nowhere close to any of them. I'm probably not even advanced. Like, I might be able to beat an advanced player 1 in 100 times. Like, somebody who actually studies the game and treats it more seriously than a hobby, I might be able to beat once in 100 games. People like me, who are casual, who know the rules, who maybe can think a few moves ahead from time to time and only make a couple mistakes, I'd say I could beat most average skilled players 50% of the time to 80% of the time, right? I'm not going to say I can just beat every novice, right? But it would be a good back and forth, I think. So, I mean, I have grandma hobbies too, but, you know, I guess what are you going to do in the dystopian nightmare, right? If everything's digital and in your face, you got to do something that's analog so that the ads aren't thrown in your face, right? And I love video games, right? I love video games on the phone. I love them on the computer, the PlayStation, right? There's a PlayStation behind me under the desk in the Oval Office, okay? But yeah. Mediocre would be around 1K ELO. Oh, then I'm probably actually 800. I don't think I'm 1K ELO. If I am, but I think that would be, I'm probably 1K ELO on a good day. I was good at chess when I was Leia's age, but I haven't played since then. Yeah, so there it is. All right. What? Hold up. What? What? Hold on. Bruh. What the fuck just happened? It's even showing me what is going on. Are you serious right now? Why is it not working on this screen? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Are we serious? Wouldn't be a stream without technical difficulties. Okay, that kind of derails my whole ending, doesn't it? My name is Samuel Ronan, your next president, and I don't know how to use OBS, apparently. But I can run the country. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for making it through this stream. It has certainly been one hell of a stream. We are goose-stepping towards our own annihilation and our own collapse by the day. And the most depressing part of it all is we all have to go to work tomorrow. We all still have to go to the grocery store, make dinner, take care of ourselves, and keep a roof over our heads. And that makes it all the worse because most of us just want to scream into the void or be out on the streets marching. But if we do that, then we lose our jobs, which then means we lose our homes, and then we're homeless in the middle of winter during a time when homelessness will get you shot, killed, and hated by not just the state, but also your fellow countrymen, because evidently 60% of working people living in their cars or on the streets is not a big enough sign that there's a much larger problem. So, with that being said, there is hope for the future. There are people resisting fascism. There are ways to resist without needing to protest. You can always contact your legislator. And the more of us that do that every single day, every hour, every minute of every single day, the more we annoy the shit out of them, the more they will understand that, oh, I guess the era of ignoring my constituents in favor of my donors is over, because they are going to recall me because they finally figured out how to do that thing, and I am going to lose my seat, my power, my influence, and possibly my life. So, we can boycott stuff. General strikes are coming around the corner, right? There are any number of things that we can do in this platform, this channel, my campaign, and my future presidency will facilitate them all. So on that note, like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please join us on Tuesday through Thursday. Tuesday is U.S. policy and news. Wednesday is Worldwide Wednesday with worldwide news and policy. And then today, as you saw, was a recap of all of the above and whatever we may have missed. So have a great night. Have a great weekend. I will see you guys next week. Samuel Ronan, your president, out.